Hi everyone. Before you drift off, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. If you're enjoying the stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's relax and jump into tonight's case. Story 1. Claustrophobia is an anxiety disorder triggered by tight, enclosed spaces. For those severely afflicted, even stepping into an elevator can spark dread. The smaller the space, the more intense the restlessness and panic, sometimes to the point of suffocation. Today we're delving into a story tied to this very fear. A 20-year-old girl was locked inside a wooden coffin for 7 agonizing years. Each day she was confined within it for 23 hours. The stifling sensation, like being buried alive, is enough to drive anyone to despair just imagining it. The rare moments she was released each day were not for respite, but to endure brutal torment and abuse at the hands of her captor. Trapped in a dark, fear-soaked hell, escape seemed impossible. Yet, this young woman miraculously survived, eventually breaking free to reclaim her life. So what unfolded that year? You're watching True Crime in the World, where we explore the most puzzling cases and most gripping stories. Red Bluff is a quiet little city in Northern California, USA. Spanning just 20 square kilometers, it's bisected by Interstate 5. This is where our story takes root. On May 19, 1907, in the Red Bluff area, a vibrant, beautiful 20-year-old stood by the edge of the Interstate 5. Her right hand was raised, thumb pointing skyward, the classic hitchhiker signal. Back then, this was a popular way for young people to travel. They saw it as more than just a free ride. It was a chance to meet new faces, making it a widespread trend. She waited a while. 2 cars pulled over but sped off shortly after. When a third stopped, she peered inside. Behind the wheel was a young man and beside him sat a woman, his wife, cradling a newborn in her arms, clearly a family of 3. To the girl, they seemed warm and safe, so she climbed in without hesitation. Chatting in the car, she felt at ease, her guard down. She introduced herself. "I'm Colleen Stan from Eugene, Oregon. I'm hitching my way to a friend's place in Northern California for a birthday party. I've already covered over 300 miles, with about 100 left to go." As Colleen spoke, she didn't notice the driver flash a strange, fleeting smile. A dark thought flickered in his mind. She's the one. The driver was Cameron Hooker, 23. The woman beside him was indeed his wife, Janice, 19. Married for 2 years, they had a daughter nearing her first birthday. They had been out for a casual drive when they stumbled across Colleen. She had no inkling of the danger creeping closer. The car pulled into a gas station. While Cameron fueled up, Colleen ducked into the restroom. Suddenly, a vague voice echoed in her head. It unsettled her, but she brushed it off, splashed water on her face, and returned to the car. Back at the vehicle, she spotted Cameron retrieving an odd box from the trunk. He acted nonchalant, though, and drove on. On a desolate stretch of road, Cameron abruptly stopped. Before Colleen could react, a sharp knife pressed against her throat. In that remote nowhere, she was powerless. Cameron then grabbed the strange box and clamped it over her head, locking it shut. The box was a wooden contraption with a latch, crafted to block out all light and sound. Once it encased her, Colleen plunged into utter darkness, blind, deaf, and barely able to breathe. After a long, jolting ride, Cameron Hooker dragged Colleen to the basement of his home on Oak Street in Red Bluff. When the box came off, light flooded her eyes for the first time in hours. After such an ordeal, she thought the nightmare might be over. But in truth, a 7-year descent into hell was just beginning. Cameron fashioned a specialized hood, shrouding her head, blindfolding her, and stuffing a rubber ball in her mouth to stifle screams. That was merely the prelude. He then hoisted her arms onto a steel beam overhead, stripped her bare, and lashed her relentlessly with a leather whip. Muffled sobs escaped through the gag as agony consumed her. Amid the pain and panic, peculiar sounds drifted up from below. Through a sliver of light beneath the blindfold, Colleen glimpsed Cameron and Janice coupling right beside her, both visibly exhilarated. her gaze snagged on a magazine sprawled across the floor. Its cover featured a woman suspended in midair, a scene eerily mirroring her own plight. When the grotesque spectacle ended, Cameron produced a rectangular wooden box. It resembled a homemade coffin, save for small air holes drilled along the sides. He forced Colleen inside, shackled her hands and feet, sealed the lid, and walked away. Trapped in that cramped, pitch-black prison, she drowned in fear and hopelessness. She clung to the faint wish that it was all a nightmare, that she'd wake to normalcy. But the icy sting of chains and throbbing pain yanked her back to a brutal reality. She was captive to a monster. Colleen endured an endless first night. As dawn crept in, Cameron appeared, silent. He bound her to an iron frame, securing her hands and feet to its four corners. With her rigged in place, he left. Stripped bare, Colleen hung on that frame day and night. By the third day, Cameron returned, hoisted her up, and beat her again. The days that followed brought more of the same torment. Each day, he rationed her a single meal and scant water, even dictating her bathroom use. Over time, the cruelty escalated. Beyond barring clothes, he forced her to sleep in the wooden box daily as routine punishment. In idle moments, he'd grope her, suspend her, bind her with ropes into poses he fancied, dunk her in water, or jolt her sensitive areas with electricity. Within a month, Colleen shed over 20 pounds. For the first 5+ months, Colleen suffered such inhumanity. Most hours, she was locked in that coffin-like box, sometimes sealed shut for 23 hours a day. It was beyond what anyone could bear, let alone a 20-year-old girl. Yet Colleen clung to resilience. To survive, she obeyed Cameron's every demand. She soothed herself with fantasies that one day he might let his guard slip. And indeed, an escape chance might have flickered, except Cameron had planned ahead. His words snuffed out her hope. He declared, "I'm not alone in this. I'm part of an outfit called the Company. It's an underground slave trading ring, with members sprawled across communities, police forces, even politics. They're everywhere, watching every move of those we hold. Try to run, and they'll drag her back, torture her, and harm her family, too. Right now, they're tracking her. If she dares flee, neither she nor her kin will know peace." These threats petrified Colleen. Fearing for her family's safety, she resigned herself to her fate. In January 1978, Cameron presented a slave contract. He claimed it was standard for the organization and demanded Colleen sign it, pledging herself as his personal servant. Per its terms, her body and soul belonged to him. Her real name was erased. She'd be known only as Kynant. Forbidden to speak without permission, she had to address him as master and obey his every command unquestioningly. Before any action, she was to kneel, bow, and seek his approval. Faced with this absurd document, Colleen recoiled. But when Cameron wielded her family's lives as leverage, she was cornered and capitulated, forcing her signature. Some might wonder, with Cameron so depraved, didn't his wife Janice fear him or intervene? In truth, Janice didn't resist. She was his accomplice. This forged a bizarre dynamic between them. Cameron Hooker was born November 5, 1953, in Alturas, California. Little is known of his early years, save that his parents moved often for work. Not until 1969 did they settle in Red Bluff. By then, Cameron was markedly withdrawn. He shunned outdoor pursuits, preferring solitude and idle daydreams. After high school, at 19, he took a job at a lumber mill. Around then, he met Janice, just 15. Her unstable family life left her insecure and timid. To her, Cameron, tall, handsome, seemed a kind soul. She grew reliant on him, feelings blossoming. As they bonded, Cameron sprang an odd request. No one else would agree to this, he said. Janice balked at first, but when he mentioned a past girlfriend who had complied, something swayed her. She assented to his twisted whim. He strung her up, inflicting pain. Though rattled afterward, Cameron's knack for reading her softened the blow with tender gestures and sweet words, lulling her defenses. In the days that followed, he sought new ways to sate his urges on her body. By 1975, they wed. Their warped bond persisted. Janice endured frequent harm, yet remained tethered to him. She couldn't fathom leaving, even yearning to bear his child. But their actions made keeping a baby near impossible. Cameron seized on this, persuading her. "Have a kid if you want, but I need a servant girl. I'll vent everything on her so you can rest easy raising the baby." Janice agreed without pause, stipulating only that Cameron avoid emotional or physical intimacy with the servant. Soon after, they began their hunt. In January 1976, cruising the roads, they spotted Mary, an 18-year-old. They lured her into their car, clamped a lockbox over her head, and hauled her to their basement. Cameron unleashed a barrage of atrocities on Mary, ending in her death. Afterward, they dragged her body to a spot near Lassen Volcanic National Park in Northern California and buried her. Post-murder, Cameron laid low for months. When no police came knocking, his caution waned. He swiftly resumed the search for a second servant girl. That pursuit led to the scene that opened our story. Colleen, alone, thumbing a ride, ultimately ensnared. After Colleen vanished, her parents alerted the police. But with scant leads and the rudimentary state of criminal investigations at the time, the case stalled. Desperate, her parents drove aimlessly across regions searching for her. A directionless hunt was like seeking a needle in a haystack, fruitless. As time wore on with no word of Colleen, they began to fear she was lost forever. Yet, unbeknownst to them, she was confined in a basement, enduring unspeakable torment. In February 1978, 7 months into her captivity, Cameron assaulted Colleen sexually. As noted earlier, he had agreed with Janice he could abuse their servant girl but not sleep with her. Yet Janice's stance shifted. She hinted Cameron could take Colleen, even suggesting it might thrill her more. When he did, Janice watched. Contrary to her expectations, the act she'd greenlit didn't excite her. It left her rattled and uneasy. Consequently, Cameron refrained from further intimacy with Colleen for a while. Come April 1978, Cameron opted for a new hideout. Perhaps feeling safer, they relocated to a mobile home on Pershing Road, about 4 miles from their old place. Lacking a basement, Cameron improvised with his waterbed. He built a platform beneath it, turning the box below into Colleen's living quarters. Inside, a portable toilet, some tissue, and a lone small radio, her only tether to the outseat world. For the next year, Colleen spent most hours in that box. When Cameron wanted her, he waited until deep night after his daughter slept. He'd lied to the girl earlier. Auntie went home. By September 1978, Janice gave birth to their second child atop that same waterbed, Colleen concealed beneath. When the baby hit 7 months, Janice took a night shift job. Cameron found childcare irksome, so he freed Colleen from the box to tend the kids and handle chores. By June 1980, Janice switched to full-time work, leaving no time for the children. Cameron deliberated and handed Colleen full responsibility for childcare and housework. She no longer returned to the box at night, though freedom remained elusive. At bedtime, Cameron locked her in the bathroom toilet to thwart escape. Life trudged on like this for over 6 months until Cameron grew bored. The thrill had faded. He stuffed Colleen back into the box and told Janice to quit her job and resume parenting. As the kids grew, tormenting Colleen became trickier. He feared they'd catch him, so he schemed to build a basement. To do it, he forced Colleen to dig and construct it herself, a grueling 2-year task. Beyond physical abuse, she labored with pick and shovel. Amid this, her faith in God and fierce hope of escape sustained her through inhumane brutality. To survive and bide her time, she feigned obedience before Cameron. Compliance eased her suffering and earned slivers of freedom. But he seemed to sense her game, often wielding the shadowy the company to cow her. That fictitious group loomed as her greatest terror. She dared not risk her family's ruin. Her prolonged submission did coax more leeway. She took on chores and occasionally worked the yard, yet the fear of flight held firm. Time slipped by. By 1981, 4 years into captivity, Colleen's compliance convinced Cameron he'd broken her. He bent his rules, letting her visit her parents. Overjoyed yet wary, she suspected a test from the company. Revealing the truth could doom her family, so she stayed silent. Her sudden return stunned her parents. Pure elation washed over them. To spare their worry, she claimed life was fine, burying her imprisonment. Cameron posed as her boyfriend for the visit, shadowing her. After, she was dragged back to her hell. Upon return, Cameron, for reasons unclear, bristled at the freedom he'd allowed, locking her in the box again, this time for 3 years. For over 3 years, Colleen lay confined 23 hours a day, released only at midnight. Cameron kept her so cloistered his kids never saw her in that span. By January 1984, his whims shifted. He granted her minor liberties, though nights meant the bathroom again. Colleen doubled her cooperation, dreading the box's return. Each day, its 23-hour grip baked her in summer's stifling heat, breathing a chore. Her sole wish was liberation from that coffin. Her utter compliance reassured Cameron he'd tamed her, prompting more freedom. By May, she wasn't just doing indoor chores. She worked at a hotel a few miles away. Though freer, the specter of the company, and 7 years buried alive, shackled her resolve. She mused that if this limbo held, it wouldn't be so bad. Days rolled on. Cameron reveled in Colleen's obedience and Janice's compliance, believing he had mastered both women. He even told Janice, "Let's make Colleen a second wife." Threesomes followed. Janice outwardly acquiesced, but unease festered. Insecure and love-bound, she'd bent to Cameron despite his evil. Now, with him treating Colleen as a spouse, her place felt threatened. Her love split, her hold on him slipping. She agonized, fearing she'd lose him entirely, yet couldn't voice it to Cameron. The strain gnawed at her sanity. She knew she needed an outlet. Fortunately, a church stood near their home. Janice unburdened herself to the pastor, recounting her 7-year saga. She mentioned Cameron's captive, Colleen, without naming her. The pastor urged her to send Colleen home and flee her vile husband, even suggesting legal action. Janice wavered, still tethered to Cameron by fear of loss. But her disquiet swelled over time. After over a month of torment, she returned to the pastor, resolved to act, not by leaving Cameron or turning him in, but by expelling Colleen. Janice confronted Colleen. "Cameron's alone. The company he talks about doesn't exist. It's a lie to scare you." Colleen froze, stunned. For 7 years, the company had haunted her, chaining her obedience. This revelation rocked her. She doubted it at first, fearing a trap. But Janice spilled everything, including her own story, hoping Colleen could go home safely on one condition: give her and Cameron a pass, no police. After a sleepless night, Colleen chose to seize her stolen freedom. She agreed to Janice's terms. The next morning, with Cameron gone, Janice drove her to her mother's house, then called Colleen's parents, announcing her return and asking them to wire bus fare. At the station, amid passing cars, Colleen felt a tangle of emotions she couldn't name. After much deliberation, Colleen called Cameron. Returning home, she honored her promise to Janice and didn't alert the police, giving them a chance. But once Colleen was gone, Cameron spiraled into panic. He feared exposure and prison. Janice reassured him, insisting Colleen had vowed silence. Over the next few months, Colleen stayed in touch with Janice and Cameron through letters and calls. Janice worked to ease her concerns, claiming Cameron had turned over a new leaf, destroying his torture tools and vowing a fresh start. In truth, his twisted cravings persisted, and the implements remained intact. One day, Janice caught wind that Cameron might turn on her and their daughters, making them his next captives. For her kids' safety and her own, after agonizing reflection, she heeded the pastor's advice and took Cameron to court. She handed police evidence of his murder of Mary. But without Mary's remains, the case lacked enough to convict him. For the crimes against Colleen, Cameron faced charges of kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, and assault. Logically, Colleen, the victim, and Janice were pivotal witnesses, poised to seal his fate. But a twist emerged at trial. Cameron's lawyer presented a defense wielding love letters Colleen had written to him as evidence. Addressing this, Colleen explained that psychologists had assessed her condition. Survivors like her, held captive long-term, often develop Stockholm Syndrome, a psychological state where hostages form bonds and dependency on their captors. That's why she never fled. At trial, prosecutors laid out over 100 pieces of evidence. Wooden lockboxes, photos of Colleen strung up, torture devices, coffin-like crates, and more. Janice, her children, neighbors, friends, the pastor all testified. The mountain of proof and witnesses was ironclad. Cameron's artful denials couldn't sway the facts. On November 22, 1985, the jury reached a unanimous verdict. Cameron was sentenced to 104 years for assault, kidnapping, and wielding dangerous weapons. Judge Clarence Knight, delivering the sentence, declared, "Cameron ranks among the most dangerous psychopaths I've encountered. As long as he breathes, he'll threaten women. The best course is to lock him away for life." In 2015, under California's elderly parole program, Cameron qualified to seek release. Given his peril, the bid was denied. His next shot won't come for another 15 years. As for Janice, though she'd abetted Cameron and tried burying evidence, her testimony spared her prosecution. She reclaimed her maiden name and rebuilt her life. Colleen, the victim, endured 7 inhumane years, much of it locked in that box, a living burial. Her back and shoulders bore severe, lasting damage, necessitating long-term care. Despite the anguish, she never gave up on life. Post-trial, she studied accounting, married, and had a daughter. She also threw herself into local women's advocacy. She aids abused women in escaping hardship. Sometimes she speaks at podiums, sharing how she overcame towering odds to reclaim normalcy, hoping her story inspires others. In 2009, Colleen authored The Simple Gift of Life, chronicling her ordeal, her resilience, and her bold pursuit of a future. Naturally, she stressed that young women should never hitchhike recklessly. Story 2. One Little Girl, Two Families. A 7-year battle over a daughter that stretched across borders, from Tennessee in the United States to the federal Supreme Court. This case was so seismic that both China and the U.S. had to enact unilateral legislation in response. This is the infamous Hime case, a saga that gripped the world. The drawn-out struggle captured the attention of Chinese communities at home and abroad, as well as mainstream American media, even earning airtime on CNN. And beneath the twists and turns of this convoluted case lies a stark reflection of humanity's light and shadow. On January 23, 2007, the Tennessee Supreme Court ruled that He Xiaoqiang and his wife would fully regain parental rights and custody of their daughter. The court also ordered the Bakers, the foster parents, to return Hime to her biological parents for upbringing. After 7 grueling years, the legal fight was finally over. So how did this 8-year-old girl, the heart of a bitter clash between the He family and the Baker family, end up separated from her birth parents just 3 weeks after she was born? And how did this battle for custody escalate into an international firestorm? You're watching True Crime in the World, where we explore the most puzzling cases and most gripping stories. As usual, before we begin unraveling today's mystery, please leave us a like and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you so much. Hime was born on January 28, 1999 in Tennessee, USA. Her arrival filled He Xiaoqiang and his wife with overwhelming joy, but it also thrust the struggling couple face-to-face with harsh reality. At the time, He Xiaoqiang, a doctoral student in economics, was tangled in a messy harassment case that threatened to upend their lives. He Xiaoqiang hailed from Shaoyang, Hunan Province. After earning his master's degree from Hunan University in 1988, he taught in the English department at Nanjing Polytechnic University. He was a standout son of his generation, driven, ambitious, brimming with passion. In '95, he arrived in the U.S. on a student visa to reunite with his wife, who was abroad. But their marriage quickly unraveled, ending in divorce by '96. In '97, He Xiaoqiang secured a full scholarship for a combined master's and PhD program in economics at the University of Memphis. Through mutual friends, he met Luo Qin, a woman from Chongqing who ran a business selling audiovisual products. 3 years his junior, Luo Qin lacked formal education, but was eager to learn with a deep love for books. Their long-distance romance bloomed over phone calls and letters, and before long, they held a wedding celebration in China, though they never registered it with the Civil Affairs Bureau. 6 months later, Luo Qin joined him in the U.S. as a dependent and soon became pregnant. It seemed their lives might settle into a quiet rhythm. But on October 18, 1998, a single phone call shattered that peace. It came from the director of instruction at the University of Memphis. He informed He Xiaoqiang, then a graduate research assistant, that he didn't need to come to work that day. A female student had accused him of offering her $500 for illicit services and harassing her. In the blink of an eye, the fallout cost him his job and his scholarship. The student who filed the complaint against He Xiaoqiang was Qi Xiaojun, 4 years his senior. She had moved to the U.S. with her husband in '92. Regarding the accusation, He Xiaoqiang cried foul, claiming Qi Xiaojun had tried to seduce him. When he refused her request to borrow $500, he said, she seized the chance to retaliate. Both had their own versions of the story, but with no concrete evidence to back either side. The Memphis police announced in November '98 that the case wouldn't be pursued. Still, from that moment on, the He family's life spiraled into an abyss. Before November, they had relied on his scholarship to scrape by. Now that lifeline was gone. Some days they barely had food on the table. Though the police dropped the case, the University of Memphis reinstated He Xiaoqiang's right to continue his coursework, but the scholarship stayed revoked. Meanwhile, Luo Qin, now 6 months pregnant, began to doubt her husband. She stormed to the university to confront Qi Xiaojun, demanding answers. The response? Kurt, go ask your husband. On the flip side, Qi Xiaojun complained to the school that she'd been threatened by He Xiaoqiang's wife. That accusation swung Luo Qin back to her husband's side. She started to believe him. Not long after, on November 27th, Luo Qin, 6 months pregnant, ran into Qi Xiaojun and her husband at a supermarket. According to Luo Qin, the husband spotted He Xiaoqiang and charged at him, fists flying. When she tried to intervene, she was shoved to the ground. She bled repeatedly in the days that followed, and finally, on January 28, 1989, she gave birth to their daughter, He Mei, at a local hospital, a premature delivery. He Mei's arrival plunged the family deeper into hardship. First, the premature birth racked up a hospital bill of $12,000, payable only through insurance they didn't have. So, just 28 days postpartum, Luo Qin dragged herself to a restaurant to wash dishes for cash. Second, still reeling from the harassment complaint, He Xiaoqiang felt the university had treated him unfairly. He published an article in the school newspaper accusing the administration, demanding an apology and the restoration of his scholarship. He even went to the media threatening to sue. But the University of Memphis doubled down. The supermarket brawl reopened the harassment case, escalating it into graver charges: assault, coercion, violence. The school firmly backed Qi Xiaojun, and the part-time night security gig He Xiaoqiang had fought to land at the university vanished too. His scholarship was history. He Xiaoqiang now faced the constant threat of jail time. Legal battles loomed, demanding money they didn't have. The family of 3 teetered on the edge of collapse. They'd planned to send the baby back to China for her grandmother to raise. But He Mei was barely a month old. Getting a passport took time. Plus, He Xiaoqiang was just months from finishing his graduate degree. They couldn't walk away now, so they made a desperate call: entrust their daughter to someone else until the legal mess cleared, then bring her home. Through the local juvenile court, they connected with the Mid-South Christian Adoption Services Agency. The agency introduced them to the Bakers, a couple deeply admired in the community. Devout Christians, the Bakers lived in a sprawling 1,400-square-foot mansion in East Memphis's wealthy enclave, a testament to their affluence. More importantly, they had a reputation for helping struggling families and a wealth of experience raising kids. With 3 biological children of their own, they'd previously cared for other families' little ones, always with meticulous devotion. They'd long dreamed of adopting a child. Despite their wealth, the Bakers treated everyone, rich or poor, with genuine courtesy and respect. To them, Caring for children was a sacred lesson from God, one they were determined to ace. This kind, gentle couple quickly won the trust of He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin. On February 23, 1999, with the adoption agency as witness, both sides signed a temporary 3-month agreement. During those months, whenever He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin visited their daughter, the Bakers welcomed them like honored guests. He Mei thrived under their care, healthy, growing, cherished. Seeing their little girl flourish filled them with boundless gratitude toward the Bakers. By the 2nd month, Luo Qin suggested that, even though the Bakers never asked for money, they should offer something for He Mei's upkeep within their means. So, during a visit, she handed them 300. Mr. Baker refused it outright. Undeterred, she discreetly left the cash on the sofa, only to find it tucked back into her coat pocket when they got home. He Xiaoqiang explained, the Bakers were true friends, devout believers. They didn't care about a few bucks. By May, the temporary agreement to place He Mei in foster care was nearing its end. But He Xiaoqiang was still neck-deep in lawsuits, and their finances hadn't budged, an unmistakable sign they couldn't bring their daughter home. He Xiaoqiang started the process for He Mei's passport, intending to send her back to China. That's when the Bakers stepped in. They approached the couple, offering to keep caring for He Mei, and even help secure her health insurance. In the US, lacking insurance is a dire issue, especially for a premature baby like He Mei, whose fragile health demanded regular care. With insurance, her medical needs could be met, letting He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin focus on their legal battles with some peace of mind. Seeing their dire straits, the Bakers went further, showing concern in every way imaginable. It left He Xiaoqiang profoundly grateful. So, on June 4, 1999, both parties headed to the Memphis Juvenile Court to sign a custody transfer agreement. 2 days earlier, lawyers for both sides had assured He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin it was only temporary. With a pastor and court staff present at the signing, they believed it was just a formality, something they could undo any time to reclaim their daughter. The signing process unfolded shrouded in ambiguity. Luo Qin was called into the office first. Her English shaky, an interpreter explained the terms. She stressed that the document was temporary, raising no objections. Moments later, He Xiaoqiang was summoned to sign. And just like that, a vague, open-ended guardianship transfer was inked, a ticking time bomb that would ignite a 7-year battle for their daughter. After signing, He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin exhaled, relieved. But what they didn't see coming was the quiet shift in the Bakers' demeanor. They kept up their weekly visits to He Mei as before, yet the Bakers' warmth seemed to cool. Later, Mr. Baker even told Luo Qin outright kids grow up slowly, and they wanted to give He Mei a structured, thorough upbringing. He hoped they'd cut back on visits. When He Mei turned 7 months old, the couple's fortunes had improved. Working under-the-table jobs in downtown Memphis, they'd clawed their way to stability and wanted their daughter back. But the Bakers pushed back, saying they'd formed a deep bond with He Mei. Mrs. Baker, then 7 months pregnant and prone to miscarriage risks, might not cope if He Mei were taken away suddenly. They asked to wait until after the birth to revisit the matter. With the Bakers framing it that way, He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin didn't press further. There's another angle to this, though. Some say they went along with the Bakers' advice because keeping He Mei in foster care ensured she'd stay in the U.S. By late February 2000, Mrs. Baker gave birth to a girl. Luo Qin was thrilled. This meant their daughter might soon return to them. She and He Xiaoqiang arrived with flowers, diapers, and gifts to celebrate. But the Bakers brushed off any talk about He Mei, citing their busy new reality. Weighing the situation, He Xiaoqiang urged his wife to hold off a few more days. Another month passed, and Luo Qin couldn't contain her longing anymore. She told the Bakers flat out she wanted He Mei back. They refused, throwing her and her husband's undocumented status in her face as a threat. A heated, bitter argument erupted. To fight for their daughter, He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin sought advice from the juvenile court. That's when they uncovered a bombshell. 8 years earlier, the Bakers had applied to adopt Asian children through local agencies. In Memphis, there was an elite circle of adoptive parents, doctors, lawyers, stable, high-earning Americans who took in kids from China. The Bakers, real estate brokers with unsteady income struggled to break into that clique. Then they met tiny Hime and fell for her. It was a shortcut, no costly trips to China, no uncertainties. The day after gaining custody of Hime, Mrs. Baker, guided by their lawyer, began meticulously logging every visit from He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin. Only then did He Xiaoqiang realize this wasn't just a personal rift. It was heading for a legal showdown. To ease the strain of the brewing custody war, He Xiaoqiang took Luo Qin to the University of Arizona for his thesis defense, then to the Grand Canyon to unwind. It was her first and only trip in the U.S. By then, she was pregnant with their second child. But that getaway later became ammunition for the Bakers' lawyer, who accused them of splurging on a Grand Canyon vacation, while claiming they couldn't afford to support their daughter. In May 2000, He Xiaoqiang passed his thesis defense and earned his master's degree. Back in Tennessee, they kept working at the restaurant. His standout performance landed him a front-of-house manager role, boosting his salary to 20 kuan a month. Luo Qin's English improved, too, pushing her wages above 1,000. They hoped these strides would convince a judge they were ready to bring their daughter home. Soon after, they formally filed a petition with the juvenile court, firing the opening shot in a 7-year war for their daughter. By June, a hearing loomed, what He Xiaoqiang called a no-brainer, something even a child could decide. Yet the juvenile court shot it down. Reason 1, He Xiaoqiang's criminal record. Reason 2, the He family's finances hadn't meaningfully improved. Both points aligned with the earlier foster agreement, that the birth parents couldn't care for Hime in the foreseeable future. The ruling left them helpless and seething. Next, they doubled down, grinding away at jobs to build a steady work history, proof their family could support Hime. They also kept up regular visits to their daughter. They knew the Bakers, who spent every day with Hime, held the emotional upper hand. So each visit demanded extra effort, more heart. And every time, Mr. Baker sat there, cold as stone, his mouth twitching downward unnaturally. On January 28, 2001, Luo Qin called the Bakers, asking to take Hime for a family photo to send to her grandparents in China. Mrs. Baker refused, claiming Hime had a cold and was unwell. Hearing their daughter was sick, Luo Qin and He Xiaoqiang raced to the Baker's house. There was Hime, playing in the living room, showing no signs of illness. Furious, Luo Qin demanded, her tone unyielding, that they take Hime out that day. A fierce argument exploded. Within minutes, the Bakers called the police. In that affluent neighborhood, the cops arrived fast, ejecting He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin with a warning not to return. Later, this clash came up in court. Police paperwork clarified they'd only meant the couple couldn't return that day. But He Xiaoqiang took it as a lifetime ban. So they didn't go back. Once home, He Xiaoqiang dashed off a letter to the juvenile court, railing against the Bakers for blocking their visits. They didn't send it right away, hoping to smooth things over with the Bakers first. When no response came, they faxed it to the court on the morning of February 15th, scrawling urgent across the top. It sank without a ripple. Undeterred, they returned to the juvenile court repeatedly. Finally, with a staffer's help, they refiled for custody on April 9, 2001. But the court dragged its feet, never scheduling a hearing. Calls to staff yielded no answers. No one could explain the delay. Years later, during the case's review, the Tennessee Supreme Court was stunned to learn that while the petition was filed on April 9th, it wasn't docketed until May 29th, a gap of over 7 weeks. Their last visit to Hime had been January 28th, exactly 4 months and 1 day earlier. Tennessee law states that if parents don't visit or pay support for over 4 months, it's deemed intentional abandonment. If it's in the child's best interest, parental rights can be stripped. The next hearing was set for June 6th. Judge Hone, who had once visited China, presided. He arranged an interpreter for Luo Qin, whose English was weak, and told He Xiaoqiang the court could provide free counsel if needed. Hone sparked a surge of hope in them. After a flurry of questions, he declared loudly that this was a straightforward case. Turning to the Bakers, he said sternly, if the He family hadn't abused or abandoned Hime, and no permanent adoption agreement existed, the court wouldn't let them keep her. The tide seemed to turn, but the Bakers didn't flinch. Mr. Baker cited their lawyer's absence, asking Hone to delay the ruling. When the hearing resumed on June 22nd, Hone no longer had jurisdiction. 2 days earlier, the Bakers had escalated the fight, filing a petition in a higher court. They accused He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin of abandonment, demanding their parental rights be terminated. It was the time the couple learned of the 4-month abandonment law. The case stalled again, pushed to 2002. Hone's last act was to recommend the court assign the He family free counsel due to their poverty. But the appointed lawyer was lukewarm at best, outmatched by the high-paid attorney the Bakers hired. The He family faced a steep uphill battle in the legal war ahead. In the year before the next hearing, the Bakers' lawyer played a calculated game. First, they exploited the couple's lack of a legal marriage, filing a complaint with immigration to deport them. Then, under the court's name, they sent summonses to Memphis restaurants, especially Chinese ones, labeling He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin illegal immigrants and warning against hiring them, threatening depositions if defied. This ruthless tactic aimed to starve them out, forcing retreat without a fight. He Xiaoqiang had to take jobs elsewhere, sometimes as far as Atlanta, a 7 to 8 hour drive, coming home once a week. Adding insult to injury, the Bakers suggested He Mei's striking looks didn't match He Xiaoqiang's, questioning his paternity and demanding a DNA test. They dangled a promise. If it proved he was her father, they'd allow visits. Cornered, He Xiaoqiang took the test on November 17, 2001. Results showed a 99% plus match. He was undeniably her father. Still, the Bakers reneged on their word. On February 7, 2002, the trial began, and it was a one-sided affair. Judge Allison, overseeing the case, issued 6 unilateral orders against He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin. 1. No discussing the case with the media. 2. Luo Qin must undergo a mental evaluation. 3. Surrender He Mei's passport, for post a 15,000 bond. 5. Submit their marriage certificate. 6. Cover all legal costs. These terms screamed bias. The Bakers faced no bond, with Allison reasoning they were wealthy and reliable. Yet records showed the Bakers had filed for bankruptcy in '93, wiping out massive credit card debt, loans, and more. 3 years later, they bought a mansion in an elite neighborhood for nearly $400,000. What crushed Luo Qin even further came 2 days later, when the court issued a new order, tacking on 2 more conditions to the original ruling. 1. The He family was barred from any contact with their daughter. 2. The Bakers were officially granted protective custody of He Mei. ABC News in the U.S. picked up the story. A lawyer named David Siegel caught the broadcast and reached out to He Xiaoqiang. Outraged by the injustice, he offered to represent the He family pro bono. Siegel stepped in, replacing the court-appointed attorney, and his first move was bold. He demanded the court lift the harsh no-contact order and immediately restore the He family's visitation rights. What they couldn't foresee was that this request would take 5 years to come through. The judge's blatant bias left He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin surrounded, fighting on all fronts. The criminal case still loomed unresolved, and now immigration authorities were closing in. With the He Mei case stalled, deportation seemed imminent. Out of options, they turned to the media for help. For a month, they crisscrossed over 20 cities, acting like street vendors, holding up photos and old newspaper clippings, recounting their ordeal to passers-by, handing out flyers. At the same time, they sought aid from the Chinese embassy, and it paid off. Those efforts would later prove pivotal in forcing the courts to rule with clearer eyes. Thanks to the Chinese embassy's intervention, the U.S. granted He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin temporary immunity, meaning no deportation until the He Mei case reached a final verdict. As the case gained traction, a wave of Chinese Americans rallied behind them, offering immense support. On February 21, 2003, He Xiaoqiang's harassment case reached its final hearing. After 8 hours behind closed doors, he was declared not guilty. From then on, their support swelled. Chinese organizations dug into the case's details, showing up in courtrooms to back He Xiaoqiang. Among them was Yu Dongshao, a Hunan-born physics PhD who wielded the art of war tactics against the judge. His strategic brilliance was a game-changer in securing victory. Meanwhile, donations to the Hime Fund, set up earlier, poured in, fueling much of the legal fight ahead. By February 23, 2004, the Hime case hit its second trial. English-language media swarmed it like an NBA All-Star game, with supporters of both sides locked in a bitter, irreconcilable clash. After over 3 years, He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin finally saw their daughter again. But Hime was a stranger to them now. This time, with Yu Dongxiao and others in their corner, the He family wasn't steamrolled as before. Instead, the bakers slipped, exposing clear signs of altered testimony and lies. Legal experts buzzed. The He family was poised to win. Yet, in a twist no one saw coming, the judge stripped He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin of their parental rights. The ruling was a brutal personal attack. Calling it venomous wouldn't be an overstatement. But the court's injustice only fueled more support for the He family. Law professors and bar associations across the U.S. drafted legal briefs in their favor. Their defense lawyer and Yu Dongxiao scrambled to prepare an appeal. Tennessee attorneys and experts kept in close touch, offering guidance. In 2005, the Memphis court upheld the original ruling. In October 2006, He Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin appealed to the Tennessee Supreme Court. This was the endgame, both sides throwing everything they had into the fight. Hime, now 8, had become the bakers' entire world. To clinch victory, they slung more mud at the He family, fake marriage claims, failed assault allegations, you name it. During this stretch, a film company approached the He family, pitching a book deal on the Hime saga, with plans for a TV series or movie and a hefty payout. Soon after, Hollywood came knocking too, proposing a film with royalties split 3 ways. He family, bakers, and Hime, plus an upfront cash payment for the He's. He Xiaoqiang molded over and declined. Later, he learned those offers traced back to the bakers. Digging deeper, it turned out the bakers were drowning in hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal debt. Turns out they'd long schemed to cash in on the Hime case. What infuriated the Chinese community most about the bakers was their lawyer's claim. China's entrenched son preference meant that if Hime returned, she'd face a grim life or worse, be drowned in a pond for being a girl. Not stopping there, this brazen racism escalated when the bakers released a video of Hime wearing a Mexican sombrero. In it, the little girl declared she was Mexicans, not Chinese, couldn't speak Chinese, only Spanish, and would never go to China. Even many Americans found this over the line. Countless U.S. families adopt from Asia and don't hide their kids' origins. Some even encourage them to reconnect with their roots later in life. The bakers' actions didn't just insult adoptive families. They wounded the child's sense of self. On January 23, 2007, the 7-year legal saga finally ended. The Tennessee Supreme Court overturned 2 prior local rulings, returning Hime to her birth parents, Kai Xiaoqiang and Luo Qin. One family rejoiced, the other reeled. Devastated by the verdict, the bakers appealed twice to the Tennessee Court of February sat on June 25, begging to keep custody. Both pleas were shot down. Over 7 years, they'd pulled every string to hold on to Hime. The money and emotion they poured in, even the He family couldn't deny it. Legal fees alone topped first $1,000. After the case closed, the bakers filed for bankruptcy. Their home was foreclosed, Rolex watches and precious jewelry sold off, and their eldest daughter dropped out of college. The Hime victory was a win for every parent in America. The Tennessee Supreme Court's ruling became gospel locally. Future similar cases at appellate courts would almost certainly cite it. To prevent such custody battles from recurring, Tennessee State Representative Hardaway proposed a bill echoing the Hime verdict's core. Seeking custody reflects an effort to maintain the parent-child bond. An effort negates abandonment. Dubbed the Hime Act, it marked the first U.S. law named after a Chinese person. The case seemed wrapped up, but for Hime, the real pain and confusion were just beginning. At 8, she couldn't grasp why she was being taken away. Clutching a sobbing Mrs. Baker, then gripping the stair railing, she fought to stay. Forced into the car, she wailed from the back seat. Back with the He family, Unable to speak Chinese or connect with them, she spiraled into an identity crisis. Therapy couldn't ease her passive defiance. Only when her parents let her sleep in their bed, and her younger sister Jo, who grew up with her, visited weekly, did May's smile slowly return. Remarkably, the courtroom foes softened after the ruling. In late January 2008, the He family invited the Bakers to co-host May's birthday, with 2 conditions: no calling themselves her parents, and no tears in public. Mr. Baker said he couldn't hold back tears and stayed away, but other Bakers attended. He Xiaochang later mused that, if the chance arose, he'd love to work in the US again. The Bakers offered to help. After a year of transition, May began accepting her birth parents, her identity confusion fading. In February 2008, she returned with them to Hunan, China. Media frenzy hailed He Xiaochang as China's model father, lauding his relentless fight for his daughter. A vocational school soon offered him an English teaching post. Luo Qin settled back with family, focusing on the kids. May was enrolled in a public elementary school, but her weak Chinese landed her in 2nd grade. Just when everyone thought the story had a tidy ending, on June 10, 2008, He Xiaochang blindsided everyone with a divorce filing. He demanded Luo Qin pay $15,000 and share custody of their son. Caught off guard but not unprepared, Luo Qin told reporters they'd rushed into the relationship, their personalities clashing from the start. In the US, lawsuits buried their issues. Back in China, small fights flared every 3 days, big ones every 5. He'd even gotten physical a few times. She'd called the police. He Xiaochang told the media he didn't really want a divorce, just to scare Luo Qin, yet refused to withdraw the suit. Then he dropped a bombshell. Maybe bringing May back was a mistake. He'd considered giving up. Luo Qin had insisted on fighting. By September 2008, with He Xiaochang failing to provide living expenses, Luo Qin had no choice but to take their 3 children to her parents' home in Chongqing for support. But the kids, raised in the US, lacked Chinese household registration, limiting them to bilingual international schools. The sky-high tuition for 3 was beyond Luo Qin's means. Later, an anonymous parent from a high school affiliated with Sichuan International Studies University heard their story and quietly covered the fees, allowing the children to return to class. This ordeal spurred action. The Overseas Chinese Affairs Office of China's State Council issued the regulations on allocating schools, districts, and cities for the children of overseas Chinese returning to study under compulsory education. Since then, returning Chinese expatriates' children have been entitled to free compulsory education in public schools. In 2009, the Bakers, still longing for May, invited her to visit the US. By the summer of 2011, May and her siblings traveled to Memphis for a vacation, warmly hosted by the Bakers. They hoped she'd return each year. In 2014, after receiving a $450,000 demolition compensation, Luo Qin noticed May thrived more in the US education system. She toyed with sending her back for high school. On a whim, she called the Bakers to ask if they'd take her in. Despite 7 years of litigation that nearly bankrupted them, they agreed without hesitation, extending the offer to May's brother and sister, too. Later, her brother, unable to adjust to US life, returned to China. By 20, after graduating high school, May earned a full scholarship to a private university in Tennessee. Her younger sister followed suit, studying from high school through college. In 20, now a striking young woman, May opened up to the media. She spoke candidly about her past, admitting she once avoided searching her own name online. Reckoning with it was inevitable, she said. She'd come to terms with everything, embracing her history, even discussing her increasingly distant father. He Xiaochang, she noted, only reached out when he needed her photo for something. On holidays or her birthday, he never sent gifts or even called. In 24, May graduated college. Now fluent in 3 languages, she dreams of becoming a diplomat. Story 3. Recently, a rumor has sent shockwaves across the globe, whispering of a connection between Barack Obama and Jennifer Aniston. Both are titans in their realms. One, a former US president. The other, a Hollywood leading lady. The mere notion of a link between them has left many stunned. When I first caught wind of this rumor, I was genuinely taken aback. But as I tracked its spread over time, it ballooned, blurring the line between fact and fiction, making it tough to sift truth from noise. So, I'd urge everyone to stay sharp when digesting such tales, lest we get swept up in unverified chatter. Could there truly be an intriguing tie between a former American president and a famed Hollywood actress? Let's dive into this story. Barack Obama, the 44th President of the United States, holds the distinction of being the nation's first black president. Born August 4, 1961 in Honolulu, Hawaii, Obama grew up there with stints in Washington State and Indonesia. After graduating from Columbia University in 1983, he took a job as a community organizer in Chicago. By 1988, he enrolled at Harvard Law School, becoming the first black editor-in-chief of the Harvard Law Review. Post-graduation, Obama worked as a civil rights attorney and taught at the University of Chicago Law School from 1992 to 2004. In 1997, he was elected an Illinois state senator, then joined the U.S. Senate in 2005. From 2009 to 2017, he served 2 terms as president. Throughout his life, one woman has been a cornerstone for Obama, his wife, Michelle Robinson, who stood by him every step of the way. Michelle was born January 17, 1964, in Chicago to a modest family, her mother a homemaker, her father a water plant worker. She studied at Princeton University, then Harvard Law School, graduating in 1988. She joined the prestigious law firm Sidley Austin thereafter. Their love story sparked in the summer of 1989, when Michelle supervised Barack at Sidley Austin. At first, she wasn't impressed. He strolled in late on his debut day. While colleagues swooned over his charm, Michelle found him unremarkable, even a tad goofy. But working alongside him, she saw his brilliance, calm demeanor, and rare talent, untainted by the ambition that drove others. Slowly, she warmed to him and they began dating. In October 1992, Barack Obama and Michelle tied the knot. Post-marriage, Michelle pivoted her career, working for nonprofits before becoming Associate Dean of Student Services at the University of Chicago, then Vice President for Community and External Affairs at the University of Chicago Medical Center. Initially, Obama and Michelle hadn't planned on kids, enduring a painful pregnancy loss. They later turned to in vitro fertilization, welcoming their eldest daughter, Malia, in 1998, followed by Natasha in 2001. Here's a twist. Before Obama's presidency, Michelle out-earned him for years. Take their 2006 tax filings. Michelle, as vice president, based on pulled in over $270,000 from the medical center, while Obama, a U.S. senator, made under $160,000. Some might wonder, for an elite family, isn't $400,000 a year modest? Factor in stock earnings and book royalties, though, and their annual haul topped $1 million. Emotionally, early years strained them. Obama juggled teaching and politics. Michelle balanced work and family. Fatigue set in, fissures forming in their bond. To mend it, Michelle dragged him to marriage counseling. Compromise followed, and their relationship steadied. Crucially, Michelle took charge of her emotions, refusing to let his presence or absence dictate her happiness. When she stopped blaming and viewed his absences rationally, many tensions dissolved, and so Michelle walked beside Obama into and out of the White House. At his farewell address, gazing at her from the podium, he choked up. For 25 years, you've not just been my wife and the mother of my children. You've been my best friend. You took on a role you didn't ask for with grace, guts, and humor. You've made me proud, and you've made this country proud. From all this, Obama and Michelle emerge as an ideal pair, their life seemingly rich with love. Yet lately, whispers of strain between them have swirled, divorce rumors multiplying like dark clouds shadowing the Obama family. Recently, the U.S. government held a grand state funeral for the 39th President Jimmy Carter at Washington National Cathedral. Government officials, the Carter family, and close friends gathered in attendance. Current President Joe Biden, former President Donald Trump, and former Presidents Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama were all present. Yet one detail stood out. Aside from Michelle Obama, the wives of the other former presidents sat among the guests. Media outlets reported that Michelle was vacationing in Hawaii at the time, a move that sparked murmurs about the state of her marriage to Obama. On January 20th, 25, Donald Trump took the oath of office at the U.S. Capitol. Obama attended, but Michelle was conspicuously absent. Her office had preemptively announced she wouldn't be at Trump's inauguration, offering no explanation. This broke with historical tradition, where presidents and their spouses typically attend the swearing-in of their successor. Many outlets speculated that Michelle's absence wasn't tied to marital strife, but reflected a personal stance. She had openly expressed disdain for Trump, criticizing his rhetoric as a threat to her family. Analysts suggested her no-show might have been to dodge the spotlight or signal her political views. Still, whispers of a divorce persisted. To quash rumors of a rocky marriage, on January 17, 25, Obama posted a birthday tribute to Michelle on social media. The photo captured her radiant glow as he, tender and attentive, held her hand over an intimate dinner, a testament to years of harmony and unspoken understanding. The image, paired with Obama's caption, delivered a resounding rebuttal to outside speculation, spotlighting their enduring love and bond. Obama wrote, "Happy birthday to the love of my life. You fill every room with warmth, wisdom, humor, and grace. You look incredible. I'm so lucky to share this life's adventure with you. Love you." His heartfelt words struck a chord, igniting a firestorm of buzz online. Fans flooded the comments with blessings, hailing their love as an aspirational beacon. Michelle swiftly responded, sending virtual hearts and kisses, her affection clear in the lively exchange. This not only bolstered public faith in their union, but also polished their image anew. Some media observers noted that, through years of interactions, Obama's steadfast conviction shines. He's balanced family with philanthropy deftly. His PR team navigated the storm with finesse, momentarily quieting doubts about their marriage. Yet skeptics lingered, pointing to a weary edge in Michelle's expression in the photo. It fueled questions. Why do whispers of trouble in Obama's marriage endure? Some rumors even cast Hollywood icon Jennifer Aniston, dubbed the Ageless Goddess, as a rival in this narrative. In 24, whispers surfaced of a possible affair between Obama and Aniston. Initially dismissed as gossip, these tales refused to fade. In October 24th, Jennifer Aniston appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live, and the host wasted no time thrusting a tabloid into the spotlight, one blaring headlines of a romance between her and Barack Obama. The story claimed Aniston had stolen Michelle's husband's attention, leaving Michelle betrayed. Aniston let out a sigh and a wry smile, her exasperation palpable. But she didn't dodge the rumor. She tackled it head-on. She explained that, whenever she stumbles across such tabloid tales, she sees them as absurd fabrications, unworthy of anger since they're so blatantly false. Aniston clarified she'd met Obama just once, and actually knew more about Michelle. On air, she stressed she wasn't dating anyone, hadn't been in any relationship for 5 years. Her words, though, couldn't douse the speculation. The rumors kept simmering. Recently, a social media user posted a screenshot alleging a supposed friend of Aniston's had spilled at a party that she'd confessed to an affair with Obama, backed, bizarrely, by a psychic's testimony. While it sounded far-fetched, the post claimed this was no secret among Aniston's inner circle. The story detonated online, spreading like wildfire. Suddenly, an Obama-Michelle divorce seemed more plausible. Some outlets latched onto Michelle updating her social media status in late December 24. Her comment section flooded with reactions, forcing her to disable it temporarily. Despite the buzz, the Obamas stayed mum on their marriage rumors, opting for silence. Meanwhile, Aniston, the alleged other woman, felt compelled to speak out again to quash the chatter. On January 25, 25, a source told the press Aniston initially planned to ignore the gossip, but she realized silence only fanned the flames. Breaking her usual no-comment stance, She aimed to snuff out the rumors before they spiraled further, worried they might upset Michelle. The source added that Aniston confided to friends this was the wildest rumors she'd faced in her spotlight-drenched years. She couldn't fathom how such tales took root. Beyond concern, she was utterly baffled. Aniston felt for Michelle, having caught wind of the Obama marriage trouble buzz. She knew all too well the sting of being tabloid fodder. Post-denial, the rumor mill slowed. Online, supporters rallied around her with comments like, "Aniston wouldn't touch a married man. She knows the damage it'd do." Others vented, half joking, "An Obama-Brad Pitt affair sounds more believable than this." Why the outpouring for Aniston is tied to her storied romantic journey. Jennifer Aniston was born February 11, 1969, in Los Angeles, to actor parents. She spent early years in Greece before her family moved to New York. At 9, her parents divorced. By 11, her acting flair emerged. In 1988, at 19, she stepped into entertainment with a minor film role. Pre-fame, Aniston juggled waitressing, telemarketing, and odd jobs to scrape by. Her breakout came as Rachel on Friends in '94. The show ran 10 seasons, ending in 2004, catapulting her to global stardom. She followed with films like Bruce Almighty and Along Came Polly, branching into producing. Aniston's also a fervent philanthropist, backing St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, Doctors Without Borders, the Red Cross, and more. She's been voted among the world's most beautiful and alluring women, ranking as a top-earning actress. Though no social media fan, she joined Instagram in 2010, amassing 1 million followers in just 5 hours and 16 minutes. In '98, Jennifer Aniston met Brad Pitt, a Hollywood titan. After 2 years of dating, they wed in 2000. At first, their marriage was a sweet rarity, a Hollywood success story. But on January 7, 2005, they stunned fans with a separation announcement, finalizing their divorce by October 2 that year. During the Aniston-Pitt divorce, the media buzzed with speculation that Brad Pitt might have strayed. Other rumors pinned the split on Aniston's reluctance to have children. She dismissed these claims, asserting no one was at fault. Their marriage simply unraveled, as marriages sometimes do. By May 2011, Aniston began dating Justin Theroux, an actor, director, and screenwriter. They tied the knot in August 2015, only to part ways by late 2017. As for Brad Pitt, tabloids pegged Angelina Jolie as the alleged affair partner during his marriage to Aniston. The two met in 2003 on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, with whispers of romance surfacing in 2004, while Pitt was still Aniston's husband. After the divorce, Pitt and Jolie welcomed their first child in 2006, followed by twins in 2008. Raising 6 kids, 3 biological, 3 adopted, they married in 2014. But by 2019, their union crumbled, sparking a bitter, drawn-out legal battle over custody and assets. Reports from December 30, 2024, confirmed Pitt and Jolie finalized their divorce agreement. Compared to that messy saga, Aniston's split was a quiet affair. A wealthy woman in her own right, she sought no alimony from her ex. Now in her 50s, Aniston remains a timeless beauty icon, admired for her ageless allure. She's rarely cast as a homewrecker. Having tasted betrayal's sting herself, she'd never wish it on another woman. What of Michelle Obama? Was her absence from President Jimmy Carter's funeral a scheduling clash? A refusal to share a stage with Trump at his inauguration? Or a sign of marital strain with Barack? Today's tale might be mere rumor, but as the old saying goes, where there's smoke, there's fire. No need to rush. Let's watch this unfold and chase the truth. An old adage rings true. True love isn't just life's romance. It's understanding and lifting each other through the smallest things. May every marriage, whether it storms and grows stronger, not scatter in the wind. Story 4. Would you risk severing ties with family and friends, laying bare your secrets and theirs, before millions of viewers nationwide for just over 5,000? Probably not. But what if the stakes climb to 500,000? The answer shifts. Some would, and they're not few. In 2007, a reality TV show called Nada Más Gallavarded hit the airwaves in Colombia. With its daring themes, it skyrocketed to jaw-dropping viewership almost overnight. Before long, 36 countries, including the UK and the US, snapped up the rights to produce their own versions. The show was built like an obstacle course game. Each episode spotlighted an everyday contestant facing 6 escalating levels of difficulty, answering 21 deeply personal questions in total. The further they went, the more invasive the questions became, some so raw they'd choke in your throat. In 2012, Peru's version, El Valor de la Verdad, debuted in Lima. Its no-holds-barred content and unflinching dive into human nature hooked viewers instantly, sparking heated debates. But beyond the buzz, a shocking murder case sprang from this very show. And that's what we're unpacking in today's video. You're watching True Crime in the World, where we explore the most puzzling cases and most gripping stories. At the heart of this story, and the first contestant on the show, is Ruth Talia Sayas, a 19-year-old girl. Like most participants, her reason for stepping up was straightforward: money. She was born and raised in Huancavelica, a province in west-central Peru known for silver and mercury mining, agriculture, and livestock. Yet the climate there is damp, winters brutal, and infrastructure lags behind, with supplies often scarce. Still, the region boasts breathtaking natural beauty and a vibrant tapestry of indigenous culture. After 2010, as global science, tech, and industry surged, the struggling area began inching toward urbanization. It's not hard to spot the contrasts. Young people zipping by on motorbikes or cars, while middle-aged and elderly locals trail quietly behind livestock. Half-built concrete homes jut up amid sprawling fields. Stray dogs pad across uneven dirt, weaving past skeletal construction sites. Ruth Talia came into the world in '93, growing up on this rugged land. She lived with her parents and siblings in a modest, working-class neighborhood, a place where skilled youth or those hungry for a better life often headed to the capital, Lima, to chase jobs or education. The Sayas family was no exception. After relocating to Lima, her parents scraped by selling fruit at the market, occasionally gigging with a small band at local spots in their downtime. Talia was lively, upbeat, her smile a constant fixture. She loved TV, glimpsing lavish lives so unlike her own. It fueled her dreams of one day rewriting her fate, and it seemed that day wouldn't be far off. In 2012, El Valor de la Verdad launched a nationwide casting call. When word reached her, Talia jumped at it, landing a spot as the first contestant in the premiere episode of Season 1. Joining her on the show were her parents and Brian Romero Leyva, her 20-year-old boyfriend from the same neighborhood. Both shared a similar start, kids born into hardship. Brian grew up leaning on his mom. The two eked out a living selling breakfast food and peddling a tricycle taxi. In front of the cameras, he was reserved, stiff, lacking the ease Talia radiated. As a contestant, Talia faced a gauntlet of questions while hooked to a polygraph, testing if her answers rang true. If the lie detector greenlit her honesty, cash prizes piled up. But one flagged lie and all her winnings vanished. Of course, the polygraph was just part of the gimmick. Whether it was spot on or not, the producers held the final say. In this high-stakes dance between truth and reward, her parents and boyfriend watched her every word. As the game progressed, the questions grew tougher, but the rewards swelled too. The lowest prize was 1,000 Nuevo Sols. Nuevo Sols, about $380 in 2012 terms. The top prize at the sixth question hit 50,000 Nuevo Sols, roughly $19,000. Yet, based on versions in other countries, 80% of players crashed out by round 3 or 4. Even in the US edition, where the jackpot reached 10,000, only one person, Melanie Williams, had claimed the max by that point. Sadly, Talia's episode, for reasons unclear, never officially aired. That alone hints her path to victory, and taking home the cash was anything but smooth. At first, the studio buzzed with a relaxed vibe. The early questions were warm-ups. Had Talia ever skipped school without telling her mom? If she found cash on the street, would she return it? Her parents and boyfriend, seated in the guest section, stayed calm, even cheerful. But, as the prize money climbed, the questions sharpened, peeling back the layers of the contestants' hidden corners. The host fired off the first. Have you ever wished you were white to have a better life? Talia answered, yes. Then, have you ever felt ashamed of your family's behavior and upbringing? After a pause, Talia said, yes. She elaborated, I'm not ashamed of my parents, but sometimes, out in public, their habits and actions embarrass me. Even so, her parents' faces, just off stage, clouded with quiet unease. Let's be clear. In this game, players could cash out and walk away anytime. But at this point, Talia wasn't ready to quit. She had her sights on bigger winnings. In the next round, the host asked, is Brian your ideal type? Talia gave her answer. Then came, are you only with him because you don't want to be alone? Waiting for someone better to come along? Her reply, yes. Pressed further, she said, I don't see ambition in Brian or a future with him. Nearby, Brian just bowed his head in silence. Next, the host probed, do you think if your parents knew your real Jardeb, they'd still be proud of you? Talia answered, no. When the polygraph confirmed her honesty, the studio's air shifted. Electric. Heavy. Up until then, 19-year-old Talia had insisted she balance school with a part-time gig as a call center rep. Without missing a beat, the host cut deeper. Do you work at a nightclub? Talia faltered for a moment, then defied her mother's silent prayers. Yes. Her mom's eyes flickered with a tangled mix of emotions, but the host pressed on. What exactly do you do? Talia dipped her head, silent for what felt like forever, before admitting, I'm a dancer. The truth kept spilling out, relentless. Then came the question that plunged the family into despair. Have you ever been with someone for money? Talia's body slumped forward, hands clenched tight, her face etched with anguish. She hesitated, mouth opening, then closing, words trapped. Finally, under the gaze of hundreds, she forced it out. Yes. She confessed that, with her family's finances crumbling, she'd had no other way. Turning to her mom, she grasped for redemption, voice breaking through tears. It was only twice. There won't be a third. But the studio had already frozen in a chilling hush. After that barrage of grueling questions, Talia called it quits, abandoning the tougher challenges and bigger cash. Tears streaming, she dropped to her knees, apologizing over and over to her parents and boyfriend. She walked away with $15,000 Peruvian Nuevo Sols, about $500 in 2012, roughly a year's income for her family. Today, that'd be under $4,000. A month after the show aired, its shocking content and first episode buzz sent viewership soaring, easily outpacing 90% of rival programs in the same slot. Naturally, Talia and her family became the talk of the town. Neighbors wouldn't stop pointing fingers, driving her to avoid stepping outside. Even long-lost relatives called, berating her for shaming the family name. Despite the pain, Talia clung to her optimism. In a later interview, she said, aside from the job stuff, I've got nothing to be ashamed of. The money meant she could leave that life behind. She planned to graduate and open a hair salon with her winnings. Her bond with her parents held steady, but things with Brian were never the same. After the show, they met face-to-face just once. Otherwise, chance encounters turned into awkward dodges. During one of Talia's interviews, Brian passed by. No glance, no word, nothing. Post-broadcast, Brian's name became slang for cheated on or spineless. In an interview, he admitted he couldn't face his family or friends and couldn't forgive Talia. Not long after, they officially split. Talia later expressed empathy for Brian's feelings, offering apologies, but she insisted their issues predated the show. Cracks had already formed. That raises a question plenty have asked. Aren't reality shows scripted? Their relationship was murky. Though they played it as a breakup sparked by the show, tabloids claimed they'd parted ways before filming, an act cooked up with the production crew to join the game. Brian didn't deny it. In fact, he told one interviewer, the show tricked me and they didn't even pay me. He and his uncle, Randy Leva, stormed the TV station demanding compensation. The network shot back. Brian signed up willingly. Rules were clear up front. No extra cash owed. Whether he and Talia were a contract couple, neither the station nor Talia ever gave a straight answer. But local reporters dug deeper. Neighbors whispered Brian already had a wife and kid. His wife barely of age, plus another fling on the side. Many viewers reckoned Talia's claim of prior problems was code for a breakup long sealed. If true, critics argued, Brian had no business playing the Talia's sister stepped up to defend her, claiming the crew knew some of Talia's answers didn't match her real thoughts, but pushed her to play along for ratings. Either way, Brian wasn't letting it go. He insisted they'd agreed to fake a romance for the show and split the winnings if she won. Armed with that, he hounded Talia for a cut. When she refused, he turned to her parents demanding cash. Barely a month after airing, Talia's laptop, phone, and some cash vanished from her home in a break-in. Brian topped the suspect list. Yet, shortly after reporting it to police, she withdrew the complaint and the matter faded into the shadows. As the show rolled out new episodes, public attention splintered and the uproar around Talia quieted. 2 months after the premiere, on the night of September 11th, Talia's parents were home watching Peru battle Argentina in a World Cup qualifier. Amid the TV's roar, waiting for their daughter to return from class, they dozed off. Come morning, groggy, they called her name. No reply. Her mom scoured the neighborhood, but Talia was gone. It hit them. She hadn't come home all night. They phoned her older sister Eva and contacted Talia's classmates. One friend said she'd seen Talia leave school the night before, chatting on the phone with Brian. Her parents raced to Brian's place. His response was icy. I haven't seen her in ages. Then he turned, slamming the door shut. Though Talia mostly lived with her parents, post-show she'd rented a separate apartment she rarely used. When they checked it, the place was empty. Out of moves, they reported her missing to the police, hearts sinking with dread. Peru's outskirts were rough, and police efficiency was spotty. Tens of thousands of girls vanish yearly, but solved cases are a rarity. For now, their only shot was riding the show's fading hype to rally media help. Talia's parents broadcast her disappearance on radio stations and papers that had covered El Valor de la Verdad. They printed hundreds of flyers, plastering them everywhere. Each dawn, they knocked on doors, handed out sheets, terrified of missing a clue. Days dragged on, still no trace of Talia. Despite the show backlash, Talia had no deep enemies. That left Brian, the only one tied to her with a clear motive, as a prime suspect. But police didn't haul him in right away. They watched quietly. Meanwhile, Brian hit the press, swearing he had nothing to do with it, griping that the show had turned him and his family into public punching bags. On September 22nd, after 11 days of searching with no trace of Talia, police finally hauled Brian in. No one expected that within 3 hours of questioning, he'd crack, confessing everything. Brian admitted he was behind it all. Guided by his directions, police descended on a remote, abandoned campsite. There, buried 5 meters deep, under a crush of rocks, mud, and cement, they unearthed a body. It was Talia. Shockingly, the land where she was found belonged to Reddy, Brian's uncle. Amid her mother's gut-wrenching sobs at the scene, police arrested Brian and Reddy on the spot. According to Brian's statement, on the night of September 11th, the day Talia vanished, she left school with classmates, planning to catch a bus home. Brian called her, claiming it was his mom's birthday and begging her to swing by. At first, she brushed him off, but after his relentless pleading, she relented, parting ways with her friends. Brian paid 50 nuevo sols, about $19, to a teenage boy to stake out the bus stop and tip him off when Talia arrived. That kid became the case's sole witness. He confirmed he'd alerted Brian after she stepped off the bus. Soon after, Brian rolled up in a tricycle taxi with another man, Reddy, his uncle and accomplice. Brian claimed they drank that night. Things escalated to intimacy, but then Talia insulted him. Her words dredged up the humiliation he'd endured on TV, and in a rage, he attacked her. But the court tossed most of Brian's story. Autopsy results painted a darker picture. Talia's body contained sedatives, her face brutally disfigured, her frame riddled with wounds. The court concluded Brian and Reddy had drugged her, slipping something into her drink or using another trick, then pressured her for her bank account password. When she refused to cave, they unleashed a savage beating and dumped her with the tricycle. Brian framed it as a heat-of-the-moment killing, likely because Peru's laws back then lacked specific statutes on crimes against women. A rage-fueled murder carried a lighter sentence, a loophole he tried to exploit. Later, police found Talia's DNA in the room where it happened, and on Brian's tricycle. At his house, they recovered her stolen laptop, phone, cash, and a mattress swiped from her place at some point. It nailed him for murder and theft. As for why she dropped the initial theft complaint, Brian had threatened to vanish with her for good, scaring her into silence. The court rejected the crime of passion angle. In 2014, Brian and Reddy were sentenced to death. After an appeal, a 2015 retrial handed them life in prison and ordered them to pay Talia's family 700,000 nuevos soles, roughly $245,000 at the time, or about a year's worth of wages for many Peruvian families. That's where the story ends. Rewind to July 12, 2012. El Valor de Liberdad premiered to roaring success. In their offices, producers and network execs popped champagne, toasting their ratings triumph. Talia was their first big win, a find born of their sharp instincts. They couldn't have guessed that months later, she'd pay with her life to become the show's poster child, her death fueling their viewership legend. All she left her family was a silk flower bouquet she'd once given her mom and 15,000 nuevos soles, about $5,000, a sum no one dares mention anymore. Even after Talia's death, El Valor de Liberdad kept airing. For years, it churned out more Talias, thrusting ordinary folks onto its stage to be judged, mocked, and torn apart before millions. It finally shuttered in 20, but the scars it left never faded. The producers and execs, no regrets. They kept celebrating ratings, ad revenue, their runaway success. Talia's family will never celebrate again, but the show's cruelty pales next to the killer's malice. Brian wasn't broken by humiliation. He was fueled by selfishness and hate. He couldn't stomach Talia's win yet, had no qualms demanding her cash, stealing when she refused, threatening her life. Then he snuffed it out in the most brutal way. He played the victim nonstop, never reflecting on his thirst for control or violent streak. Whining on camera, he plotted her end off screen. His savagery wasn't a lapse in a fit of anger. It was deliberate, a cold-blooded slaughter from start to finish. Talia once thought her truth's value was 15,000 nuevos soles, but her life was worth far more than that check. As she stood on stage, prize in hand, splashed across headlines, she couldn't have known that while she won the game. The show had priced her. Her truth became entertainment fodder, her life, a tragedy for others to consume. Story 5. In overseas Chinese communities, he was hailed as the genius of Eastern medicine, a healer who had conquered countless incurable ailments, revered by patients as their last hope. More than a gifted physician, he mastered the 5 Taoist arts: mountain, medicine, physiognomy, destiny, and divination. To many, he was the final divine sage of modern times. His knack for reading faces didn't just predict futures with uncanny precision, could shift fates entirely. His name was Ni Haisha, the miracle doctor. In January 2012, Ni Haisha passed away at Taipei Medical University Hospital, leaving behind a trove of writings and lectures. What stunned people later was this. Revisiting his recorded talks, they found he'd foretold his own end. Ni Haisha was a lightning rod of debate. Some worshipped him as a medical deity. Others saw a mystic with an open third eye, while skeptics branded him a fraud. He once declared that a true master of Eastern medicine must grasp the heavens above, map the earth below, and fathom the affairs of men between. That creed reflected his fierce devotion to traditional healing, a craft deeply entwined with mysticism. Becoming a skilled physician is daunting enough. Excelling at it marks true brilliance. You're watching true crime in the world, where we explore the most puzzling cases and most gripping stories. This story weaves through the world of traditional medicine, brushing against threads of the mystical. Treated as a feast for the mind, pure intrigue. For any health worries, seek trusted medical care without delay. The eerie tale of Anai Haisha's life begins with a strange ripple at his family's ancestral tomb. Folklore whispers that great talents herald their arrival with omens, skies ablaze in red or birdsong piercing the stillness. Anai Haisha's grandfather once recounted a bizarre family legend. It unfolded years before Anai Haisha's birth in Lingxia village, Jinchuan Township, west of Ruihan City in Zhejiang Province. The Anai clan's ancestral tomb rattled with odd noises, spooking the surrounding villagers. Driven by curiosity, the locals banded together, determined to crack open the coffin and face the truth. When the lid swung back, the sight froze them in awe. Inside, a golden sparrow battled a carp in a fierce tangle. The clash raged. Then, abruptly, the sparrow darted skyward, and the carp sprang free, vanishing toward a nearby hill. From that day, the villagers christened it Golden Sparrow Tomb, and the slope where the carp fled became Carp Ridge. Both landmarks stand to this day. Anai Haisha's grandfather was a staunch believer in feng shui. After hearing the strange tale of the ancestral tomb, he summoned a host of geomancers to investigate. Each expert agreed. This bizarre omen heralded the rise of a renowned healer among the Anai clan's descendants, a prophecy etched in the earth itself. The story of the golden sparrow battling the carp, though sworn true by the Anai family, carries an air of mystique hard to deny. Some might call it legend, a tale too fantastical to take at face value. Anai Haisha's grandfather pinned his hopes for this fabled healer on his son, Anai Jilin, Anai Haisha's father. Anai Jilin was a diligent scholar from a young age, living by a personal mantra: 3 days without books, and my face turns repulsive, a self-imposed spur to keep his nose in his studies. At 15, he aced the entrance exam for Ruihan High School in Zhejiang Province. By 17, he'd moved to Jinhua Senior High, where his stellar record caught the principal's eye. The school head planned to recommend him to Southwestern Union University to chase his academic dreams, but in 1943, wartime chaos struck. Japanese shelling claimed the principal's life during the resistance, shattering Anai Jilin's college ambitions along with it. In 1946, fleeing the war, Anai Jilin landed in Taiwan. It wasn't until 1948 that he finally realized his university dream there. Though he racked up academic accolades, traditional medicine held no allure for him. The prediction of a great healer in the Anai line skipped his generation entirely. Still, Anai Jilin and his wife, Zhou Qingmian, raised 6 children, 4 sons, 2 daughters. Anai Haisha, their second son, entered the world in 1954. With him, the wheel of fate began to turn. The Anai family earned a reputation as intellectual royalty, boasting 8 PhDs across Anai Jilin's children and grandchildren. Among them, Anai Haisha stood out, earning his doctorate in traditional medicine. In the preface to his book, Heavenly Chronicles, he wrote, "Words pale next to deeds. My love for books and thirst for study stem deeply from my father's influence." Few knew, though, that before becoming a famed healer, teenage Anai Haisha dreamed of rocking stages as a singer. Guitar in hand, he penned songs, traces of which linger online today, raw clips of him strumming and crooning. From aspiring rock star to master of traditional medicine, Anai Haisha's pivot hinged on a twist of chance. In a talk show hosted by Liang Dong at the National Academy, he recalled the spark. In 11th grade, his second eldest sister suffered crippling menstrual pain. Too shy to see a doctor, she handed her research-obsessed younger brother a dusty tome of traditional medicine, the Golden Mirror of Medicine. She hoped he'd crack it open and find a cure. The Golden Mirror of Medicine, compiled by imperial physician Wu Qian in 1742 during the Qing dynasty's Qianlong era, spans volumes 44 to 49 with essential gynecology techniques. Anai Haisha didn't disappoint. After 3 months of relentless self-study, he concocted a remedy that banished his sister's pain. That small triumph swelled his chest with pride and lit the fuse for his plunge into traditional medicine. On this healing path, two mentors shaped him, Zhu Zhuoyu and Su Jimin. Zhu Zhuoyu from Hebei hailed from a long line of physicians. After graduating from Beijing Normal University, he followed his father into the trade. War drove him to Taiwan, where he passed the traditional medicine exam, cementing his status as a licensed healer. Su Jimin, once a celebrated doctor in Shanghai, later opened it in Taiwan. Both masters excelled at acupuncture, a skill Anai Haixia initially scoffed at, doubting a few tiny needles could do much. Then he watched Zhu treat a back pain patient. One prick, and the agony vanished on the spot. Stunned, Anai Haixia's skepticism crumbled into awe. He later recounted how Zhu Zhuoyu wielded a rare technique, the 13 ghost gate needles. This arcane acupuncture method said to combat 100 evils targets mental afflictions in modern terms: schizophrenia, insomnia, depression, mania, phobias, anxiety, OCD. Legend credits the 13 ghost gate needles to Bian Kuei, a mythical healer from the Warring States era. In Sun Simiao's Essential Prescriptions Worth 1,000 Gold, Volume 14, 5th chapter on madness, it's recorded Bian Kuei said, "For maladies born of 100 evils pierce the 13 points. Begin at the ghost palace," it instructs. This refers to 13 acupuncture points prefixed with ghost, ghost palace, ghost peak, ghost cave, ghost path, ghost market. Ancient belief held that mental disorders stemmed from spectral mischief. Practitioners of this art were seen as mediators between man and spirit, not banishing the ghosts outright, but needling each point methodically, gauging the patient's response. Anai Haixia shared a real tale from his early days under Zhu. A sophomore PE student from Taiwan's Fujian University sought Zhu for excruciating pain at the Huiyin point. He'd stumped doctors everywhere. Zhu told Anai Haixia to needle the leaky point linked to the Ren meridian, which includes Huiyin. The moment the needle sank in, the pain vanished. But bizarrely, it roared back when withdrawn. Bewildered, Anai Haixia half wondered if they'd tangled with a spirit. "What now?" he asked Zhu. The master replied coolly, "Go ask the kid when it started hurting." The student explained that a few days earlier, stunned Yao, he and some college buddies had gone fishing and shrimping. That night, while wading in a shallow pond, he felt an unseen shove knock him down into the water. The depth spared him injury, but ever since, a relentless pain had gripped his Huiyin point. After hearing this, Master Zhu instructed Anai Haixia to deploy the 13 ghost gate needles for treatment. As Anai reached the 7th needle, a woman's whisper brushed his ear. "This isn't your affair. Stay out of it." Startled, he yanked the needles free. He later recounted mid-session, "This voice hissed right beside me. It's not your business. Don't meddle." I glanced around. No one was there. The feeling was downright uncanny. Zhu signaled Anai Haixia to probe the student about tangled romantic affairs. The young man froze, then blurted, "I've got to see her." And I didn't grasp it then, not until 2 weeks later when the student returned. He confided in Anai and Zhu. Before college, he'd had a deep romance back home. Their passion crossed lines, but after acing his entrance exams for a Taipei university, he ghosted her. Devastated, she drowned herself in a river. His hometown visit coincided with her 7th-day memorial. He knelt before her coffin, repenting for hours until exhaustion pulled him under. In a dream, black blood and twigs gushed from his Huiyin point, the same wooded spot where they'd once been intimate. Waking at dawn, he found the pain gone completely. That ordeal cemented Anai Haixia's faith in acupuncture's power. He threw himself into study, apprenticing at an herbal medicine shop, where he first encountered the classic prescriptions, a cornerstone of his later work. Seeing her son's innate gift for traditional medicine, his mother urged him toward medical school. Nearing high school graduation, Anai Haixia aimed for a Taipei program, but a car accident days before the entrance exam broke his leg, sidelining him. Bedridden, he pored over ancient texts, his academic drive fading. The next year, his scores fell short, landing him in political science at Suzhou University instead. During college, Anai Haixia devoured books on purple star astrology, residential feng shui, physiognomy, palmistry, iron plate divination, and I Ching hexagrams. Post-graduation, he enlisted, His medical skills earned him a spot in the Matsu Island's military infirmary. There, headaches or fevers among soldiers and superiors melted away with a few of Ni's needles or herbal brews. By 24, troops dubbed him Matsu's miracle healer. Yet what stunned many was this. After discharge, Ni Haisha didn't pursue medicine. He shed his name for Fan Yulong and became a fortune teller. Why the shift? At university, he'd already dipped into the I Ching and Taoist 5 arts. He'd cast playful readings for friends, predicting exam passes or romantic conquests with uncanny accuracy. Word spread. Soon, he was the campus divine calculator. An unverified anecdote from early 1975, when Ni was 21, adds intrigue. Casually tossing a hexagram, he told pals, "This year's Emao ruled by great stream water. A big figure born in the pig year won't make it past April's peach blossoms." That pig year figure, none other than Chiang Kai-shek. The prediction raced across Suzhou University. When Chiang died in April 1975, Ni Haisha's fame exploded. Political heavyweights and tycoons began seeking his readings. Rumors swirled that his tuition came straight from divination fees. After Chiang's death, Taiwan's political scene grew turbulent. Logic pointed to his son, Chiang Ching-kuo, as successor. But Chiang's will named Vice President Yen Chia-kan instead. One day, two outsiders tracked Ni Haisha down at Suzhou University, handing him a birth chart and photo of a major Taiwanese figure. They pressed for a fate reading. A political science student, Ni knew the stakes. He studied the image, hesitating, then hedged. 3 years, isn't it? Wait 3 years and it'll be clear. Sure enough, 3 years later, in 1978, Yen Chia-kan stepped aside, handing power to Chiang Ching-kuo. Back then, Chiang Kai-shek hadn't passed the torch directly to his son to ensure a stable, legitimized transition. The Chiang family long trusted Yen. Lacking his own military or faction, he posed no threat. During his tenure, Yen deferred humbly to Chiang Ching-kuo, who'd already planted loyalists across government and beyond, securing real control. That spot-on divine calculation catapulted Ni Haisha's fame. Clients clamored for readings, lines stretching endlessly. After military service, he ditched his old name for Fan Yulong and turned divination into a livelihood. The alias carried weight. Fan evoked celestial deities, you span the cosmos, and Long summoned the dragon, symbol of Chinese might. This pivot tied deeply to his father. Ni Jilin had come to Taiwan alone, leaving his own father behind on the mainland. During Ni Haisha's college years, a rare letter arrived from Zhejiang, penned by his grandfather, brimming with longing for his son. Tears streaked Ni Jilin's face as he read it. He ached to see his aging parents. But in the 1970s, Taiwan barred visits to the mainland. Defying the ban, Ni Jilin masked a Zhejiang trip as overseas travel, reuniting briefly with his family. The authorities caught wind of it later. Whether he faced punishment remains murky, but one thing's clear. The fiasco fueled his resolve to emigrate to the US, where mainland visits were far easier. Emigration demanded cash, lots of it. As a family man, Ni Haisha wanted in. His political science degree offered no medical license. And fortune-telling, especially for the elite, raked in money faster than practicing traditional medicine. That's the crux of why he embraced the divine calculator path. By the late 1970s, a single reading from Ni Haisha cost about $95, 3,000 NTD, later jumping to $160, 5,000 NTD. A month's wage for the average worker then. Even at that steep rate, wealthy clients flocked to him in droves. His method hinged on purple star astrology, a vital branch of traditional Chinese fate reading, once dubbed imperial learning. In ancient times, only royalty or emperor-picked officials could study it. Commoners were forbidden. As noble lines faded, its texts trickled into public hands. In Eastern astrology, the purple star, called the Emperor Star, reigns supreme, none other than the North Star we know today. Gazing at the stars isn't about nightly sky watching. It's mapping a person's birth date, month, year, and hour onto a fate chart. Then 108 stars are plotted across it, blending the 10 heavenly stems, 12 earthly branches, and 12 palaces. Life palace, siblings palace, spouse palace, children palace, wealth palace, health palace, travel palace, and more. From these, a life's arc unfolds, its rises, falls, and tangled turns. The purple star charts 12 palaces, each pair with a heavenly stem and earthly branch. The branches, starting with tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, goat, monkey, rooster, dog, pig, rat, ox, locking clockwise, fixed. But with only 10 stems, 2 palaces repeat, their arrangement hinging on birth year, making each chart unique. Among the 12, the life palace reigns, mirroring innate destiny and character. Others reveal virtue palace, luck and lifespan, property palace, homes and land, career palace, work and status, wealth palace, money and prosperity, travel palace, fortune in movement or relocation, health palace, physical well-being, spouse, palace, marriage and partnerships, children palace, offspring, servants palace or friends palace, ties to peers and colleagues, parents palace, bonds with parents, siblings palace, kinship with brothers and sisters. The natal chart stays static, but the annual fate chart shifts yearly. Nehexia believed purple star astrology hinged on 3 realms: heaven, earth, man, heaven, sun, moon, stars, earth, water, fire, wind, man, essence, energy, spirit. These mirror the 3 plates, heavenly, earthly, human, in the system. Interplaying, they spin fate's wondrous shifts. The heavenly plate maps natal destiny. The earthly tracks decade-long cycles, the human charts yearly tides. Nehexia argued that a person's life hinges on 3 forces: heaven, earth, and man, each wielding a third of their fate. Heaven is heavenly destiny, the unchangeable script set at birth. Earth is geography, the landscape and social standing one inhabits. Man is the way of humanity, how a person lives and acts. Heavenly destiny stands fixed, immutable, but earth and man, those can shift after birth, bending fate to one's will. The point of reading fate, he said, is to reshape it. If you just peek at your destiny and do nothing, it's all surface, no substance, no impact. By grasping heavenly destiny, foreseeing what might unfold, people can tweak their geography and humanity to dodge disasters or seize golden chances. Take this geography, swap your surroundings or workplace, and it rewires your thoughts and outlook. Humanity, tune your behavior, your way with others. Blend heaven, earth, and man in harmony and you can rewrite your own stars. Master the essence of people and the layout of place and you've claimed 2/3 of your fate. What happens then? Can outmuscle even heaven itself. This triad, heaven, earth, man, also explains why twins born at the same hour, day, month, and year might still walk divergent paths. It's the variables, birthplace, social rank, environment, the company they keep, all differ. Nehexia stressed mutual fate analysis, insisting that reading destiny demands pairing it with physiognomy. Imagine twin brothers, born together, raised in the same home, same town, same family, yet their lives might split wide apart. Just as no 2 leaves are identical, no 2 souls mirror perfectly. Even twins differ in face and fortune. A person's features and aura cradle their lifelong fate. So, how sharp was Nehexia's foresight? A tale still circulates online. A famous actress once sought his reading. After meticulous calculations, he told her, "Your fate's steady overall, but 6 months from now, your husband faces a dire calamity." She scoffed, bristling at the grim prophecy, and stormed off. Yet, exactly 6 months later, her husband was kidnapped. The abductors demanded a staggering $3.2 million, 100 million NTD. Panic gripped her. She floundered, unsure what to do. In that frantic haze, Nehexia's warning resurfaced. She raced back to him. This time, he cast another reading and said, "Your husband's life thread holds. He's not done yet. Follow the kidnapper's demands, and he'll return unharmed." She did, and he came home safe. Later, sleuths dug into it. In 990s Taiwan, such a kidnapping did shake the island. On December 18, 90, around 10 p.m., Wu Dongliang, heir to the Starlight Group, stepped into his home. only to be ambushed by a pack of burly men lurking in the shadows. They snatched him from his own doorstep, demanding $3.2 million USD in ransom, a sum that jolted Taiwanese society to its core. Wu Dongliang's wife was none other than famed actress Peng Shuefen. After the abduction, the Wu family alerted police instantly. Authorities swarmed the house, rigging surveillance and wiretaps to track the culprits. But Peng Shuefen made a bold call. Ditching the cops, she delivered the ransom solo, securing her husband's release. The case spurred a massive police manhunt. Did Peng truly heed Nie Haisha's counsel? Or was it a yarn spun by his admirers? The truth stays shrouded. No one knows for sure. There's no denying it. Nie Haisha's uncanny knack for fate reading bankrolled his father's dream of emigrating to America. In 1980, he and his family settled in Florida, where he earned a PhD in traditional Chinese medicine and an acupuncture license. He later became a doctoral advisor at the University of Traditional Chinese Medicine in California. By the late 1980s, Nie Haisha returned to Taiwan to build his career. In 1988, he launched classes on Jinshan South Road in Taipei, teaching purple star astrology and residential feng shui under the banner Astronomy and Geography. In 92, he opened the Hantong Chinese Medicine Clinic in Florida. In 95, he founded the Hantong Chinese Medicine Hospital. In 2010, he established the Hantong Classic Prescriptions Clinic in Taipei. In the early 90s, Nie Haisha began filming lectures on feng shui and fate titled Heavenly Chronicles, releasing them on CDs for wide distribution. By 94, the Heavenly Chronicles teachings hit print in 2 volumes, Heavenly Chronicles, The Way of Humanity, and Heavenly Chronicles, Earth's Veins and Cosmic Secrets. His lectures birthed memorable maxims. Expounding the Lin hexagram from the I Ching, he said, "For lasting wealth and honor, restrain yourself at the height of prosperity. The restrained never grow smug. Without smugness, riches endure. Stay humble, and your wealth and status will stand forever." He also warned, today too many turn arrogant when rich, convinced of their own brilliance, flouting laws, tumbling into temptation and corruption. That's when petty schemers pounce to exploit them. On the G hexagram he added, "Restraint thrives in balance. Thrift is wise, but overdo it, and life sours into misery and want." After finishing Heavenly Chronicles, Nie Haisha launched the Human Chronicles Traditional Medicine course in Taipei in March 2004. By 2005, he started writing the Human Chronicles books and filming DVDs. His following swelled. Students dotted the US, mainland China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and beyond, including Silicon Valley prodigies and famed tycoons. Among his standout disciples was Dr. Lu Lihong, a leading professor at Guangxi University of Chinese Medicine's Clinical Research Institute. There was also Professor Meng Huaying from the U.S. National Institute of Technology, and his direct heir, Li Zhonghen, a Stanford PhD in electrical engineering with an MBA from UC Berkeley. In 2009, Nie Haisha spoke at the Third Fuyang Forum, hosted by the Chinese Traditional Medicine Association in Shanghai. His presentation riveted the crowd, earning thunderous applause. Soon after, he sat for an interview with famed host Liang Dong, birthing the show National Academy. Liang Dong dialogues with Nie Haisha. From there, his name echoed louder across China. In his final years, Nie Haisha settled permanently in Taipei, his true home, he claimed. After completing Human Chronicles in 2007, he began Earth Chronicles. He'd planned a trilogy, Heavenly, Human, Earth, but fate intervened. In 2012, with Earth Chronicles unfinished, Nie Haisha passed away, leaving a void of regret among his admirers. On the night of January 29, 2012, he slipped into a coma at his Taipei residence. His family rushed him to Taipei Medical University Hospital. 2 days later, on January 31st, he died at 59. The diagnosis? Heart and lung failure. His funeral was understated. No grand affair, just a quiet musical memorial led by his son and disciple, Li Zhonghen. After his death, rumors swirled about what took him. His family said only that he passed in his sleep. Some students blamed overwork, years of healing, writing, and teaching draining him dry. Others whispered he'd unveiled too many cosmic secrets, inviting a backlash. A few even insisted he hadn't died, but vanished into seclusion, pointing to a lecture where he'd predicted his end at 59. They argued, a man like Nye Haisha, adept at bending fate, couldn't possibly fail to dodge his own at that age. Could he? Nye Haisha's life remains a lightning rod. Believers sing his praises. Detractors curse him as a fortune-telling fraud. Online, glowing tales of his medical feats abound. One claimed their mother had a goiter, eating 4 meals daily, yet still ravenous, head pounding at the slightest breeze, exhausted after a few steps. In 2003, a patient sought treatment at Huaxi Hospital, undergoing radioactive I-131 therapy. 2 years later, the condition flared up again, dragging the patient's mother into a miserable existence. She devoured meals, yet stayed ravenous, headaches striking with every breeze, too frail to step outside. Then they stumbled upon Nhaxia's medical writings. Following his prescribed remedy, her health unexpectedly turned a corner. Another tale claims U.S. Councilman Ray Jack from Florida faced mid-stage stomach cancer. While battling it with Western methods, his family heard whispers of a Chinese miracle healer in their state. Skeptical but desperate, they brought him to Nye Haisha. After feeling his pulse, Nye prescribed a 7-day herbal regimen and acupuncture to curb nausea and stomach acid. Wasted by vomiting and chemo, Ray Jack was a shadow of himself until Nye's treatment kicked in. His strength rebounded, and over time the cancer vanished. Yet these miraculous accounts float in a haze, unverified, their origins murky. They might be inflated praise from awestruck locals, a hype that sometimes backfires. Nye Haisha stoked controversy, too, with bold claims, like insisting HIV/AIDS isn't fatal. Before Western treatments emerged, he labeled it a Yangming disorder, an Eastern medicine term tied to feverish heat taxoning the stomach and intestines. He argued Yangming conditions aren't dire, easily tamed with tiger's breath decoction. AIDS deaths, he said, stemmed not from HIV but from Western drug side effects. Modern medical experts scoff at this. His stance flies in the face of science. Nye Haisha openly scorned Western medicine. He dissected human life and death through both Eastern and Western lenses, declaring reliance on Western drugs a surrender to fate. Only Chinese medicine, he insisted, could wrestle with destinies shaped by nature and man. Skeptics fired back. If he was so adept at bending fate with heaven, earth, and man, why couldn't he dodge his own end at 59? Amid the accolades, dissent brewed. A woman, M. Jennifer, posted online, branding Nye Haisha a fraud devoid of ethics, no real doctor. She accused him and his self-proclaimed disciples of running a con, preying on terminal cancer patients for profit. If a patient didn't improve, he'd blame them for botching his methods or point fingers at Western drugs and diagnoses for worsening their plight. Others griped his fees dwarfed even top hospitals' rates, steeped for a supposed sage of traditional healing. One eyebrow-raising twist stands out. Nye Haisha, self-styled titan of Eastern cures and fate reading, succumbed to liver cancer himself. So, was Nye Haisha a miracle healer or a charlatan? Answers split down the middle. His saga lays bare a stark divide. Some adore and exalt him, others lash out with scorn. It mirrors society's tangled dance with health and healing, faith clashing with doubt. The biggest takeaway might be this: balancing reverence for tradition with modern science's strides, always putting patients first, is the truest path. Story 6. In Taichung, a case once rocked the public to its core. A female insurance worker was brutally robbed of her life. Thanks to a pivotal clue, a computer sold by the suspect, the police cracked the case swiftly. The buyer, Zhao Yincheng, a telecom shop owner, spotted something off about the machine and alerted authorities without hesitation. That sharp instinct handed police the key evidence to close the book on the crime. But no one could have predicted what came next. Less than 7 months later, on a street just steps from a motorcycle shop, barely 100 meters from the original scene, Zhao himself became the target. This wasn't a mere accident. It was a savage murder, a haunting coincidence. The Longjing neighborhood plunged into a grim, unsettling haze. Locals buzzed with speculation, whispering among themselves, what kind of deep-seated grudge could drive such a bloody end? You're watching True Crime in the World, where we explore the most puzzling cases and most gripping stories. It all began on the evening of July 15, 2004. At the Taipei Criminal Police Headquarters on Zhongxiao East Road, two men stepped inside, their faces taut with strain. They said they had a crime to report. In their hands, 2 cell phones, a handwritten note, and a kitchen knife. One of them spoke up. I suspect I've been dragged into a murder. The police blinked in confusion. Typically, people reporting a crime are victims or witnesses. Suspects confess outright. But dragged into? That phrase hung in the air, cloaking the situation in mystery. The man before them radiated unease, and the officers sensed this was no ordinary case. Pressed for details, he began to unravel his story. His name was Lin Juncheng, a steady-handed engineer with a solid job. 4 years earlier, he had met his girlfriend, Huang Lian, at a Taiwan University Friendship Club. A week ago, in the pre-dawn hours, she jolted him awake with a call, insisting he rush to Taichung to help her ditch some oversized bags. They were heavy, unusually so. When he touched them, a sticky red liquid, blood-like, coated his fingers. Baffled, he pressed her. What's in these bags? Her reply came cool and unbothered. Imported blow-up dolls from the US. They're filled with fake blood to look real. That's why they're so heavy. At the time, Lin bought it, sort of, but a nagging doubt lingered. Then why not toss them in the trash? Why all this hassle? She gave a faint, cryptic smile. If it were that easy, I wouldn't need you. Once the deed was done, for reasons he couldn't grasp, she handed him 2 phones and a kitchen knife as a gift. The strangeness gnawed at him. The more he molded over, the more unease crept in. Later, tidying her place, he stumbled on a scrap of paper scribbled with lyrics from Yuan Xiaoti's song. The deeper the love, the greater the wound. The words dripped with resentment. Reading them, Lin froze. Could she have another lover? In 4 years together, they'd never fought. Not once. But their bond hadn't deepened either. Stalling at hand-holding, nothing more. Truth be told, their relationship had never burned with passion. So who was this note meant for? The tangle of thoughts gnawed at Lin Juncheng, tightening the knot of dread in his chest. After days of restless nights, he made up his mind. He'd go to the police. When officers heard his full account, it struck them as far-fetched, almost absurd. But a human life was at stake. They couldn't dismiss a single detail. With the report filed, police wasted no time. They ushered Lin into a squad car and sped toward Taichung, straight to Dadu Mountain, the spot where he had dumped those oversized bags. In the pre-dawn hours of July 16th, Taipei's criminal division teamed up with Taichung's Wuri precinct. Guided by Lin, they wound up Dadu Mountain, a peak famed for its night views at Wangao Liao. But as they climbed, traffic thinned, the road growing eerily quiet. Finally, near a military camp, Lin jabbed a finger ahead. That's the place. It was a weed-choked slope. Officers sprang into action, clearing the area and rappelling down with ropes. Sure enough, they hauled up a canvas sack, matching Lin's description to a T. As they eased it open on solid ground, the contents stopped them cold. Inside lay a body part, tightly bound in duct tape. Even Lin, standing nearby, went rigid with shock. He'd bought the blow-up doll story. Never in his wildest nightmares did he expect this gruesome reality. But if this was just one piece, where was the rest? And who was this victim? No time for hesitation. Police pressed on. Following Lin's lead, they raced 3 kilometers to the Muslim cemetery. He recounted how, that night, he and his girlfriend had dumped a second bag into a ditch there. After scouring the area, they unearthed another sack. This time, the remains were cocooned in 6 layers of black plastic bags. With the evidence undeniable, police officially opened a murder investigation. As they prepped to ID the victim and summon Huang Lian for questioning, Lin's phone buzzed. The caller? Huang Lian herself. Officers signaled him to stay calm, keep his tone natural, and ask her location. She said she was in Taipei. Seizing the moment, they coached Lin to set a meet. 6:30 p.m., outside the Hilton Hotel in Taipei. The suspect was in their sights. Now it was a waiting game, luring the prey into their trap. That evening, Taipei thrummed with its usual bustle. Outside the Hilton, crowds surged past. Amid the chaos, plainclothes officers fanned out, blending into the throng. They couldn't afford a slip-up. The woman they were about to nab was tied to a horrific crime. At 6:30 sharp, a slight figure emerged. A girl, under 5 feet 3 inches, thin-framed, trudged forward, a bulky bag slung over her shoulder. Lin locked eyes with her, whispering to the cops, "That's her." The officers exchanged glances, a flicker of disbelief crossing their faces. This fragile-looking woman, a suspect in such a savage killing? They stepped forward, boxing her in. At first, she denied being Huang Lian, her voice shaky with defiance. But when they revealed they'd found the victim at Dadu Mountain, her face drained of color. Wordless, she surrendered, following them to the station. At Taipei Criminal Police Headquarters, as officers began interrogating Huang Lian, another team received an update from Taichung. DNA tests and missing persons records confirmed the victim's identity. It was Zhao Yinchang, the telecom shop owner. Just months earlier, he'd helped police crack the insurance worker's murder case. More damning still, inside the bag seized from Huang Lian, they found Zhao's ring. Zhao Yinchang, 34, was a well-known figure in Longjing. He ran a thriving telecom store, recognized not just for business savvy, but for his wide web of connections. He'd even been the youngest president of Taichung's Lions Club, a role few could claim. To neighbors and friends, he was a decent man, generous, a regular at charity drives, always lending a hand to struggling families. He had a wife and 2 sons. On the surface, his family life seemed happy, fulfilled. But beneath that polished veneer of success and virtue, Zhao Yinchang led a double life, a serial adulterer. He juggled murky affairs outside his marriage, and Huang Lian was one of them. When he met her, he buried his family ties entirely, playing the part of a single gallant man, gentle, attentive, charming. Huang Lian, past 30, and yearning for a love that lasted, fell hard into his trap. Her devotion burned fierce and all-consuming. She had no clue that to him, she was just another fleeting fling, nothing more. Even after the murder, Zhao's father shrugged it off. He only made the kind of mistake any man might, a casual remark weightless as air. But that dismissive attitude likely shaped Zhao Yinchang into a man who never imagined he'd pay for his choices, until the bill came due, and it was steeper than he could have dreamed. The day his body was found was his youngest son's 5th birthday. The boy had been waiting for his dad to come home, eager to sing happy birthday together. That father never walked through the door again. The 2 phones Lin Junqing received from Huang Lian, they belonged to Zhao Yinchang. At first, under interrogation at Taipei Criminal Police Headquarters, Huang Lian broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. She recounted how, 2 years earlier, she'd met Zhao Yinchang when she brought her phone to his shop for repairs. Back then, he was all charm, gentle, gallant, attentive. But once they started dating, his true colors bled through. He wasn't just a drunk, he was vicious. Every binge ended with him beating her mercilessly. A year in, she discovered she was pregnant. Instead of joy, Zhao Yinchang turned ice cold, demanding she get rid of the baby. Then he dumped her outright. Her heart shattered in that moment, she said. But the real horror struck a week before the killing. That day, Zhao showed up at her place, reeking of liquor. He barged into her rented room, intent on forcing himself on her. Huang Lian panicked, flailing to fend him off. In the struggle, her hand found a kitchen knife. She swung it instinctively. The blade sliced his neck. Red sprayed everywhere. He crumpled to the floor, motionless. Terror engulfed her. She didn't know what to do. She only remembered huddling in a corner for hours, trembling, paralyzed by fear. Eventually, she resolved to cover it up. She wrapped him tight in duct tape, then dialed Lin Junqing, pleading for help to dispose of the packages. When she finished, the officers traded silent glances. Her story tracked, plausible even. A fragile woman, cornered and frantic, striking out in self-defense. But what was her relationship with Zhao Yinchang really? Huang Lian, 38, worked an admin job at Tunghai University. Her cramped rental sat less than 50 meters from Zhao's telecom shop. Their meeting was pure chance. One day, her phone fritzed out. She walked it over to his store for a fix. Their first encounter was unremarkable, but brief chats and fleeting glances soon wove a thread of closeness between them. One day, Tunghai University hosted an event. As a staff member, Huang Lian received tickets for a lucky draw. Spotting Zhao Yinchang, she handed him one with a grin, a small gesture. By sheer chance, that ticket snagged the grand prize. Thrilled, Zhao blurted out, "Well, to thank you, how about I treat you to dinner?" That meal sparked something deeper. Huang Lian genuinely believed Zhao was single. So, when he pursued her, she didn't hesitate to leap in. Their romance bloomed, sweet at first. He was tender, thoughtful, skilled at making her feel cherished. But a year in, the cracks showed. She found out she was pregnant. She saw it as a turning point, a chance to take their bond further. In her mind, she pictured marriage, a family built together. Reality, though, was a brutal wake-up call. When she broke the news to Zhao, his face didn't light up, twisted in horror. Far from embracing the child, he demanded she aborted on the spot. "I can't have a kid with you. This ends here." Only then did the truth hit her. Zhao had a wife and kids all along. He'd never been serious. For 2 years, she'd been a side piece, a toy he played with, oblivious to her role. Pain and fury surged inside Huang Lian. She wouldn't let it go. Her love, her sacrifices, all traded for a curt "This ends here?" Rage took over. She stormed his shop repeatedly, stirring chaos. She snooped on his schedule, shadowing him in silence. She splashed paint on his storefront, dialed his wife with threats. Her anger flared hotter each day. Then came her wildest move. She stole Zhao's car, tore onto the highway, floored it. Damn the risks. Police gave chase. She didn't stop. Even as warning shots rang out, she gritted her teeth and sped on. Eventually, they boxed her in and hauled her off. But arrests and warnings didn't faze her. She couldn't stomach Zhao moving on with his cushy life while hers unraveled. She needed him to pay. And maybe that's when the seed of murder took root. Her confession tracked partially with their tangled history. But one gaping flaw loomed. Her story clashed with the forensic evidence. The autopsy report dropped a bombshell. Zhao Yinchang's body had no alcohol. He wasn't drunk that night. No signs of choking or a struggle marred his corpse. Nothing like a desperate self-defense scuffle. Most telling of all, his stomach held traces of sedatives. Confronted with this, Huang Lian's face blanched. She backtracked fast. This time, she swore she didn't kill Zhao Yinchang. In fact, she pointed the finger at Lin Junqing. Huang Lian claimed that when Zhao Yinchang showed up at her place, Lin Junqing happened to be there too. The two men locked eyes and erupted into a brawl. In the chaos, she said, Lin Junqing grabbed a pillow and smothered Zhao's face until he stopped breathing. The police pivoted to Lin Junqing. He stayed eerily calm, replying softly that he'd done nothing wrong, and the cops knew he was telling the truth. They had his alibi locked tight. At the time Zhao Yinchang was killed, Lin was in Taipei, nowhere near the crime scene. There was no way he could have been the killer. Once again, Huang Lian's story fell apart. This time, she had no wiggle room left. Cornered, she scrambled to flip the script. Her statements veered wildly. 1 minute, she'd acted in a panicked fluke. The next, she pinned it all on Lin Junqing. But every twist only cemented the police's conviction. She was the culprit. The forensic evidence boxed her in irrefutable. Zhao Yinchang wasn't drunk that night, blowing apart her tale of an alcohol-fueled assault. Sedatives lingered in his stomach, proof he'd been drugged before the kill. The neck wound was clean, precise, not the sloppy slash of a frantic struggle. And the scene? No signs of a fight. Together, these facts painted a stark picture. This wasn't self-defense gone wrong. It was a calculated murder, planned and executed with intent. Piece by piece, the police stitched the evidence together. On the night of July 9, 2004, Huang Lian sent Zhao Yincheng a cryptic text, a lure laced with intent. After 2 years of their tangled, murky affair, Zhao couldn't resist. He showed up. Once inside her rental, Huang offered him a glass of wine, spiked with sedatives. Unsuspecting, Zhao downed it. Within minutes, the drugs took hold. His body slackened, consciousness fading, leaving him defenseless. That's when Huang grabbed a kitchen knife and slashed his throat, ending Zhao Yincheng's life in chilling silence. She wrapped the body in layers of plastic bags, sealed it tight with duct tape, and waited for dawn to cover her tracks. In the early hours of July 10th, she called Lin Junsheng, spinning a tale about needing help with some trash bags. Blinded by love, he didn't question her, agreeing on the spot. Together, they drove to Dadu Mountain and the Muslim cemetery, dumping the remains at separate spots to throw off any investigation. But no matter how meticulous her plan, Huang made a fatal misstep. She never imagined Lin Junsheng would grow suspicious and turn to the police himself. With ironclad evidence, Huang Lian faced charges of premeditated murder. Lin Junsheng, though not a killer, was indicted for concealing a crime by aiding the disposal. At the first trial, Huang received a life sentence. Lin got 8 months behind bars. She wouldn't go quietly. She appealed. In the second hearing, her sentence dropped to 15 years. Zhao's family seethed with outrage. To them, it was a slap on the wrist. Under Taiwan law, after 14 years, Huang could apply for parole and walk free. That meant in just 14 years, she could reclaim her life while Zhao's loved ones bore the weight of his loss forever. In 22, right on cue after 14 years, Huang Lian filed for parole. Her bid failed. She remains locked up, paying for her actions, at least for now. Huang Lian's price is steep, but looking back, questions fester. Is she the ultimate villain? Was Zhao Yunqing truly blameless? Maybe if he hadn't deceived her for 2 years, toyed with her heart, or forced her to abort, this bloody end could have been avoided. And Lin Junsheng, what was he? A complicit pawn or just a lovesick fool? Did he really not know what those bags held? Did he know everything? Jealousy and spite driving him to quietly eliminate a rival, all while playing dumb? When he turned over the evidence, was it guilt gnawing at him or the dawning realization he'd been a mere piece in Huang Lian's twisted game of love? And the night deepens. Thank you for being here with me at Radio Night Crime. True crime stories remind us of life's mysteries and the need to stay aware, even in the stillness of the night. If you enjoyed tonight's story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let the sound of the rain lull you to sleep, and until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and let the night keep you company.